king, hitting the rook. He ultimately didn't play this move because if the bishop had taken the pawn, the black knight would have taken on b5, and half of white's army is hanging. Maybe rook to b6 here would have maintained the advantage, but Hikaru has gone a different way instead. It's not the e-pawn that drops off, but here if we go back to the game, Magnus has a bishop hanging loose on d6 almost. The black rook on d3 protects it, but still given a question mark. How can Hikaru maintain his edge?
But now Hikaru is the one who's under 2 minutes as well, right? Magnus up on the clock there. So Hikaru feeling the pressure. Is he going to try? And you know, that expression by Hikaru, we've seen it before against Wei Yi as well. When he starts, when the panic sets in, when the realization that the opponent has counterplay comes in, Hikaru, he needs to keep his nerves. King d7.
Magnus has blundered. Bishop to b4 now.
Oh, wow.
Moving the bishop across would have been a winning move. The black knight would have been under too much pressure. He misses it, Hikaru. We've repeated the position. He can go back and find it again. Will Magnus blunder? It's a second opportunity. He needs to find this move, bishop to b4, and then he will be taking the black knight and winning this endgame. But Hikaru's panicking.
Cannot repeat.
1 minute.
He goes for a draw or he goes to win.
He needs to play this move, bishop to b4. He needs to find it to strike back in this match.
But look at his face. It's almost like he doesn't see it. I think he's about to repeat. Hikaru, don't do it. Don't do it. This is your chance.
Play on.
One more win. A one more win for Hikaru Nakamura.
Black can save a bishop by taking this pawn. There will be a trade. The white rook, though, is going to go grab everything. That will be a winning endgame, an easy win for Hikaru. He's running out of time, though.
And the more he thinks, the more I feel he's going to repeat. And that's it. The game ends in a draw instead of the winning move. Hikaru bails out. Unbelievable.
A draw by repetition in a position where a winning move was available. Dramatic scenes here at the end of this game. And that means, as far as the match score is concerned, it's 1.5 a half. Advantage. Carlsen. Magnus has got to be thinking he was left off the hook there.
Hikaru here is analyzing on chess.com where he made those mistakes, where he let the win slip. He's actually come back to an earlier moment, not the final position. He should be analyzing that one, but then we will see a huge reaction from the world number 2.
I think it's about to happen. He's checking the game. When he reaches that moment, as he sees this game being played out, and he doesn't, he's getting set for the next one, and maybe that's a good thing, because that would have been heartbreak for Hikaru Nakamura.
Wow, bishop to b4, we pointed it out, and in this action replay, he just had no time, Hikaru, around the 1 minute mark. He panicked, repeated the position for a third time. He let Magnus off the hook here. Magnus with a fist pump when it ended. That reflects everything.
Yes, it does. And Nakamura there, I do agree with Tanya. I think it is a blessing that Nakamura maybe didn't look at the final position and that he had a winning move there and repeated moves instead. Not having that hanging over you actually helps you reset in time for game number 3.
It's what he needs to do. Magnus knows he's survived a scare. You said it. Storyline of the Arjun Aragaisi versus Ali Reza matchup. Arjun winning in the second game, lets it slip in those final moments, ends in a draw, goes on to lose.
Right.
This is a game that will come to haunt Hikaru.
I think when he, when all is said and done, if Hikaru Nakamura revisits that game in detail at some point and spots that at the very end there was another resource, well, that will come back to haunt him. But we think it's not even in his mind right now. He doesn't even need to forget about it because he was looking at the middle game, and that's a good thing for him right now as we blitz our way into game 3 of 6.
Wow, Hikaru Nakamura, he's gone back to his childhood favorite with black, the King's Indian defense. He used to play this every single game against d4 up until he reached the upper echelons of chess, and it was so effective. He took down so many world-class players. He was known as an attacking genius because of this. But he's gone away from the King's Indian in recent times. The fact that he's played it now shows he wants to be aggressive, he wants to be on the front foot, and he smells blood.
Going back to his roots, Hikaru Nakamura, this promises a mega entertaining fight. And the other big expert of the King's Indian defense is none other than Garry Kasparov in his biggest days, at his peak. The one player Magnus Carlsen believes is actually better than him in the history of the game.
And if Nakamura can maybe channel a little bit of that inner genius, which he is known to do in this opening, he might be able to strike back here. A missed opportunity in game number 2, but let's call it for what it is. Hikaru is one of the few players on the planet who is capable of manufacturing those opportunities against Magnus Carlsen. Yes, there was a missed opportunity, but the fact it was there in the first place is testament to how good he is.
It's not enough though, John. You know, you get that chance, you have to do it against him. Hikaru is the world #2 for a reason.
Yes.
And to miss that chance against Magnus up upon, dominating on the clock, dominating on the board, this is heartbreak for him. And this is what made Magnus sort of this figure in Hikaru's mind who's almost untouchable, unstoppable. When you let go of those advantages, how do you break that mental block?
Don't know. In order to answer that question, you'd first have to answer the question, how does he not see the winning move at the end of that last game? And I don't have a good answer for that, I'm afraid.
Yeah, if you drop that position on Hikaru Nakamura and you say there's a winning move, he would find it.
Yeah, puzzle rush, here you go.
Puzzle rush immediately, but it was just the trend, the fact he'd lost the thread a little bit. It wasn't as kind of clear-cut as he was hoping. I mean, going back to this position, though, I do love the opening choice. It feels like Hikaru believes this is a must-win game with Black. Of course, there's still plenty of games ahead. This will just be the halfway mark in this best-of-6 series. But there we go. He's going for it. Pushing pawns, King's Indian style. Opposite side castling as well. Anything could happen here. This doesn't actually play to Magnus's strengths, which is a great news for Hikaru. This is Hikaru from the late 2000s, early 2010s, showing that he's not afraid to blow open the center.
And these are the kind of middle game positions, right, where both players will have to make some very precise moves because it's going to get messy.
Yep.
It's already chaotic on the board. You have opposite side castling. Magnus's rook already lined up on the open G line. The F pawn about to move forward. For Hikaru Nakamura, he's also eyeing the A pawn to push forward and give some checks on B3. It's going to be a race to each other's king. This is the approach that you need to have to take down the world #1. And I think Hikaru Nakamura so far has done everything right in this game.
Exactly. Still early days, but the fact that he still has 8 minutes, Hikaru, in a very complicated middle game, the fact that he's got the King's Indian break of pushing your pawn forward to F5 is great news for him. He can connect those 4 pawns now. He can push the pawn even further forward and force white to retreat or part with the beautiful dark squared bishop. But Hikaru looks like he was hovering his mouse over other pieces elsewhere on the board. Still looking very, very healthy. I'm really shocked as well that Magnus has gone in for this. He's up in the match still, even after saving that last one. But, I just rarely see him indulge in these super double-edged middle games.
Looking for the alternatives to the F4 push here, which looks great because white can only readily really jump in with the knight on G5. It's going to take a while for white to get more pieces into the attack. Just seems like a great way to close it off and focus on your own plan. So I wonder what the alternative is.
Yeah, I like Tanya's move actually as well. Maybe you just keep the tension one move longer. Push your pawn forward to A4, eke out some squares for your horses. But yeah, it depends on Hikaru's mood here. I don't think he needs to commit so early by locking down the pawn structure, but ultimately it is normally strategically desirable to do so.
Whether it's F4 or A4, Hikaru needs to make his decision quickly because
Yes.
in these kind of openings, you know, when there are all the minors and the majors still present, trades, any sort of simplification far off, it's a race to each other's king. You're talking about aggressive attacking play. Critical decisions lie ahead. There will be plenty of those. I'll make one small prediction here. This
Okay.
game's going to be decisive, one way or the other.
It certainly feels that way, doesn't it? With a 2-minute discrepancy on the clock now, Hikaru is going to want to turn that time disadvantage into a decisive advantage over the board, right? And eventually, F4 gets played. 2 minutes and 12 seconds, that thing, in a 10-minute game with no increment. That's huge.
Yeah, that betrays the indecision in his mind. Maybe the confidence shook by not converting the advantage in the previous game, Hikaru. His position here, super healthy. The eval bar even says that black has a small advantage, especially while the light squared bishops remain on the board. Magnus will be aiming to trade those pieces in the near future. But yeah, that time usage could come back and sting him later. We'll see what Magnus has up his sleeve. I wouldn't be surprised if he takes a timeout, puts his king closer to the corner.
Look, we have good news, right? We have talked up many players who are very, very quick with the mouse, very, very quick with speed chess. Well, guess who they all look up to? Guess who Big Daddy is as far as that speed is concerned? And that is Hikaru Nakamura, okay? So yes, he's a minute and a half down, but we trust him to do more with 30 seconds on the clock than anybody in this competition.
That's right. Him and his teammate, the two Falcons, they fly fast.
Exactly.
And Magnus, in the meantime, has lost a couple of moves there, Tanya. He jumped forward with his knight, pawn kicked it away, and he's gone back.
Well, Magnus perhaps is arguing that that pawn is a weakness. Once the rook slides over to the g6 square, it can become an easier target on h6. So creating those attacking points next to Hikaru's king, provoking that pawn push, it cost him time, but got him a target on the board.
And now the black queen likely to move to connect the black rooks. Very logical there. For white, the light squared bishop is a bit of a bystander, doesn't really contribute. The white knights don't have any good jumping points. White queen a bit locked in. It does feel like, okay, no big weaknesses for white, but it does feel like your pieces are somewhat blunted. Don't think Magnus is going to be happy at all. He likes active middle games, if anything. He likes his end games too, but in these types of positions, very hard to come up with a plan. Human terms, so hard to be accurate.
This is a tougher position for Magnus to play than for Hikaru with the black pieces, that's for sure. But Hikaru will have to make some very committal decisions. You know, once he's maximized his piece placement, he will have to look for those pawn breaks. Or maybe not, because Magnus is the one bringing on the fight here.
He's doing it for him at this rate. Very interesting stuff, and the A line is now open. But both sides of the board open at the moment, so high risk, high reward for both players. Interesting choices from Magnus. It does buy him a little bit of breathing room.
Does, although black owns the open file, the G file. The black rook can come in at any moment. The white king, I'm going to say, is much more airy than its counterpart. The black king looks pretty safe, pretty well protected in the corner. Hikaru, we see his screen. He's about to play the move bishop g4. There we go, putting some pressure on white's knight. I don't think he wants to trade yet, but if given the opportunity, he might even grab the white h-pawn. Magnus goes on the defensive, and Hikaru is playing on both flanks here, Tanya.
That is amazing. You know, he's making use of every single possibility on the board. He makes one move on the left side and then on the right side.
Yep.
He's asking Magnus for a decision. If Magnus pushes that b pawn forward, he's blocked all counter chances on that queen side, giving Hikaru essentially a free play all over the board. But does Magnus even have the possibility to keep the tension? Will we see the streamer's favorite move played against the world's favorite streamer? Will that be en passant?
No, en passant. It's a one-time offer. Magnus could have captured the c5 pawn a moment ago, but that is no longer on the cards. Black's knight looks super strong now. Can't get rid of that one on the b4 square. Magnus moves his king. It just needs a breakthrough. It's very blocked, but it feels like the black has the more active forces.
Keeping the position just a little bit closed. At the Esports World Cup, en passant isn't legally enforced. Of course, you don't have to take it. And we've chosen not to on this occasion. Queen now moving to the stronger side of the board for the black pieces.
It's a maneuvering game, and I really like the plan that I think Hikaru is setting up. He wants to reroute that dark squared bishop, the one piece that is so inactive in his camp, to a diagonal where he can get on the attack. Bishop d8, bishop a5 is what Hikaru Nakamura wants in the position. Magnus Carlsen not giving him the time to do so? Or are there tactics that perhaps still allow Hikaru to continue with his plan? Now that we spot that the king on d2 is lined up, he goes for it. Knight takes knight, bishop a5.
Nice.
Pin it, win it.
Beautiful. The King's Indian defense is known as an attacking weapon with the black pieces, but often there's one problem piece, and it's that dark squared bishop. You end up blocked behind your own pawns. If you ever activate that piece, it becomes a huge weapon.
White's light square bishop, we've talked about it already this game. Definitely the problem piece, blocked behind everything, in there at the long run as a defender. Black's dark square bishop, blocked behind everything, but the A file was opened up by Magnus Carlsen a couple of moves ago, and that has presented Nakamura with an opportunity to shove that bishop over to the A file, and it looks like this is going to happen. That dark squared bishop is suddenly going to become a very active piece staring down at the heart of White's position.
It's from zero to hero, you know, that bishop has transferred itself to a square where it's perhaps going to be the strongest piece in the position targeting White's king. And love how Hikaru's played on all flanks, right? We're talking about the left side, but let's point out the queen and the bishop on the right side are about at least threatening all the time to win that h5 pawn as well.
And you said it yourself, Tanya. Hikaru is also pretty darn good at grinding everything down. David, you agreed. This is beginning to look like Hikaru giving us a little bit of that as well.
Perfect game so far, but we said that about his play in the second half of the earlier game, in game 2. He couldn't finish that one off. This one's still very blocked. He needs a breakthrough. Good move there. Very important move by Magnus to occupy the A file to prevent infiltration. You still need a next step. And yeah, I'm going to say overall, though, no matter what happens in this game, this is exactly how Hikaru needs to play. Aggressive opening, King's Indian, push pawns, try to go for the opponent's king. White's king looks pretty safe, surprisingly, despite being in the center here, quite far advanced. But yeah, Hikaru, even if he doesn't turn this one into a win, he just needs to take inspiration from it. He's played fantastically so far.
He really has. I'm going to point out, though, I love how Magnus's king is just chilling in the center. You know, it's surrounded by his own pawns, but it's also playing a key defensive roles to exactly those central pawns, knowing that if any check happens, it might be game over, but any check is far away from that. And as I said, he tries to get it back to safety, sort of passing the ball to Hikaru right now, and Hikaru comes in with another plan. You know, it's all about the A-file. I think he wants to get his queen over to B7, assist it to bring the rook and start attacking the white queen from A8 and give those very important checks.
And oh, hang on a second, because the white queen is going to be the first piece to infiltrate, and the Silicon does not like that at all. We are now trapped behind enemy lines.
Look at Magnus shaking his head. The white queen has no way home. It's going to be sitting on that silly square for the rest of this game.
And the light squared bishop, it can come and start targeting it. It almost, and it does. Is Magnus Carlsen about to lose his queen?
We need to see Magnus here. Hikaru just needs to get his bishop out the way. We see a round of applause.
The crowd goes wild.
Hikaru fans there in the audience here in Riyadh. The white queen is still alive for now, but all you need to do is bring the bishop across. She's only got one safe square. Then you slide the rook. That Magnus Carlsen's queen is about to fall. He plays on. Hikaru Nakamura has to take this point, though.
He has to. He can't mess this up for the second time. Team Falcon, big support there. The home favorite team, Magnus Carlsen resigned. Hikaru Nakamura is back in the match.
Hikaru comes back swinging. King's Indian defense, and look at that, trapping Magnus Carlsen's queen to level the match after game number 3. What an incredible performance. Vintage Hikaru is back, and Magnus, well, turns out he's mortal after all.
Magnus, he showed weakness in game 2. He clutched up, saved it with a helping hand from Hikaru, but this one he could not save. Look at that poor white queen caught by that bishop combo. The bishop's pawns blocking the escape route, and Magnus's queen there. I've very rarely seen him blunder in those circumstances, Tanya.
This is what Hikaru needs to do more of. Those dynamic openings, those complicated lines. And what better way to make a comeback win against the king of chess by winning his queen?
Beautiful, very appropriate as well. These two fantastic warriors battling it out. But Hikaru, he's going to feel on top of the world.
That was 2 separate victories there. That was a victory over the board, and that was a psychological victory. We have broken the duck. We have shown that we can come back and take those points against the world #1. Ladies and gentlemen, this semi-final has just had a huge fire lit under it. When we come back from this break, we'll be moving into game number 4 with the scores level at 1.5 apiece.
What's up, everybody? I'm joined by Ali Reza for a content series that we call First Move. And Ali, I prepped you before this. The question I have for you is, who got you into chess? How did you start?
Yeah, I was trying a lot of sports in summer after school, and I was trying football, gymnastics, and I was not so great.
How old were you?
I was around 8, 9 when I first went to a chess club, and then everything started there, just for summer sport. so doing something in summer.
So remind the viewers, how old are you now, Ali? How long have you been playing chess?
Yeah, I'm 22 now, and I'm playing. You do the math.
Yeah, 22 to 8, 14 years.
Yes.
Can I ask you something? When did you know that you were good at chess?
I think I didn't care about the fact that I'm good at chess. I just really liked it a lot. And
Okay.
you couldn't separate me from chessboard and online chess. So
If you'll humor me, at 18 years, 5 months, and 13 days old, Ali Reza became the youngest player to beat 2800, beating Magnus Carlsen's record. How does that feel when you think about that accolade? Are you proud of that?
yeah, it was a great achievement. I mean, to just cross 2800 is fantastic achievement. I think around 15, 16 people did it in history. And to do it the youngest, it was a very great achievement.
You are an incredibly humble, competitive player. I can hear it in your voice. I want to ask, what is a bigger deal? Breaking that record or winning EWC?
Very tough question. It's so tough question.
You have to pick one. Come on. If not, what does your gut tell you?
I think I'll go. I think they're same level. Actually.
Same level? Okay,
Yeah.
amazing. One last question. Ahead of the final, you're the first finalist. Which player would you have preferred to play against, Hikaru or Magnus?
100% Hikaru, because we'll guarantee the win.
That's amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Welcome back, everybody. The scores are tied 1.5, 1.5 between the two strongest players in the world. They are duking it out for only one spot in the grand finals of the Esports World Cup. Magnus Carlsen, Hikaru Nakamura, they've traded decisive games. This has been anything but boring as we head into the second half of this fiercely contested semi-final.
So far, it does feel a bit up and down, but the latest up was on the side of Hikaru Nakamura, striking with the black pieces. Magnus rarely loses with white. That is a huge benefit for him. Hikaru has 2 whites from the remaining 3 games. So small advantage psychologically and maybe also in chess terms on his side.
And you can see the determination on Hikaru. Meanwhile, we had Magnus on the screen earlier, and he was not happy with himself. You know, losing is one thing, but losing in that manner, in that fashion, where basically you just get outplayed by Hikaru. You know, you've got the white pieces, but you're constantly on the defense.
Right.
And in the end, your queen gets trapped. That is just absolutely uncharacteristic of Magnus, and he's got to be kicking himself. But you know, these two best players in the world, they are the ones who completely forget as soon as the moves are on the board, and it's game 4.
Exactly. We're already 7 moves in as well, so here we go. It is a Catalan. We are no strangers to that here at the Esports World Cup. Familiar territory for both players, but like we've seen before, it's a slow build-up, but when it reaches boiling point, you often get the fireworks in the late middle game.
That's right, the Catalan is Magnus Carlsen's favorite opening with white these days. This time, he gets it on the black side. So interesting mind games from Hikaru Nakamura. Relatively solid start to this one. We see a quick trade of pawns in the center. White's bishop coming out. The argument here for white is that this Catalan, as opposed to a Catalan we saw earlier between these two, features a bad black bishop sitting on b7, staring at its own pawn. This is a problem piece. Magnus will aim to deal with that one a bit later.
It's like this was an instructional video. You can see the pawn still on c7, going to be a problem for black. Thinking about how we get rid of it. The problem piece, the light squared bishops are on the board. The one for white on g2 is doing a fine job of undermining the center and making sure that black has limited maneuverability. It's an improved version of what we saw earlier.
Absolutely. Magnus isn't super happy with his position. You know, even in his World Championship matches against Jan Nepomniachtchi, the Catalan did serve him well. It's something that he's played so many times. With black, the approach that he's had, he needs to find a way to activate that bishop. He first starts by taking away some squares on the right side. This move also sets up the idea of g5, which in some lines can tactically work when you need to drive that bishop from f4 away. One of the ways that black can activate that light squared bishop, the problem piece for Magnus, is by planting his own knight at the center of the board. Knight e4, if trades happen, that bishop has a bright future.
But now Magnus chooses to retreat, a very calm move there, getting the bishop out of the way of its rook. That knight e4 still on the cards for later, Tanya. Knight b4 as well. Hikaru pushes a pawn forward, saying, okay, you're not going to trap my bishop on f4. As now it prevents the g5 move forever for the near future. And Magnus chooses to lash out in the center. Not the most patient of moves, always a bit of a controversial one. Black often ends up with an isolated central pawn there, or hanging pawns. Which way will Magnus Carlsen recapture? Big question now. Question mark given to Hikaru's move, but a very human one. I don't think we could read too much into that.
Recapturing there looked very, very natural from where I was sat. So interesting that question mark was there. We now have the knight hopping to the edge of the board, but looking to exploit some fun squares, some of those dark squares nearer the c5, b6 sort of territory, also keeping the queen pinned down to making sure that knight doesn't have free access to the forces of black and potentially coming in and winning material.
This is a very combative position. This pawn formation, the hanging pawns that Magnus has at the center of the board, is the most dynamic pawn structure in chess. And it all relies around, can black get a successful pawn push? Either the c pawn moving one step forward, or timed well, the d pawn advancing further on the board. Meanwhile, for white, before Magnus can do that, you want to continue putting the pressure on those two pawns. Magnus for now does land the knight on e4. He's threatening d4 coming up next.
And we might just see that move now. The most natural move in the position. White's dark squared bishop, by the way, has done a bit of a journey, but it's landed on the long diagonal, and there we go. It gets blunted immediately. White's dark squared bishop is terrible. Exclamation point given to Magnus's last move. He's opening up the position, gaining space. That black knight on e4, the MVP so far.
And timed so incredibly well. One of the fallbacks in this pawn formation when you push d4 is that you have to make sure that neither of the knights, the white knight's opponent's knight, can land on a c4 square. Notice how Hikaru's knights are too far away from that route. That square cannot be occupied, and this gives Magnus plenty of opportunity to put his pieces on the right spot to create that counterplay before that happens.
Yeah, it just feels like it's all gone wrong. Hikaru, I think the adrenaline pumping from the previous game has been rushing slightly, making some uncharacteristic decisions. Oh, that bishop moving yet again.
It is. I was actually going to ask that question, whether or not it was possible to put more pressure on the c5 pawn by moving the bishop to a3. It also frees up b2 for a knight if you wanted to reroute it to c4. But the computer does not like that one bit. And the knight jumps in to try and block those plans as well and be as annoying as possible. And now the pawn on a2 is under attack. we might just have to trade off for this knight.
Yeah, the problem is if you do trade off for this knight, we see it replaced by a black pawn on b4, and that only helps black carve out an outpost for his own knight. Let's show this on the board. For example, bishop takes. Let's see the bishop finally leave the board. Black recaptures, and the c3 square. It's all about that one. The black knight is about to jump in. It's going to be replaced by some very strong pawns if it gets there. And if you ever remove the black knight from the center of the board, white would be parting with his light squared bishop. This is a disaster on the light squares, and the white king just way too open in these scenarios. Yes, this might win a pawn for white, but the bishop drops back, the queen comes to the center, and checkmating ideas all over that diagonal.
So lots of landmines here. Need to make sure we don't step on those in this position. And this is one of those classic plenty of ways to go wrong, even though like an innocuous move could end up being a mistake if you're not careful in these sort of positions. And there's not just one way to make a mistake as well. There's many ways to make that blunder.
I'm loving Magnus's position here. You know, he does go for that trade pointed out, defends that a2 pawn, but the c3 square that we highlighted, that's a big one for the knight to jump on. Magnus captures with the queen, defends the b7 bishop, freeing up that knight to get on over to that beautiful post on c3. Currently, Hikaru jumps with the knight, with his own knight. Queen takes pawn, a threat on the board.
No, given a question mark, Hikaru's last move, but it makes a lot of sense. Tactically here, Magnus rushes in with his knight. Given a question mark, maybe it was better to start chasing away the white knight from f4, but now the key detail is that the white queen can go and grab a pawn since the white knight protects e2. No forks for black. And it feels like the position is starting to liquidate. Magnus not maximizing his advantage there. It's been very strategic so far. Hikaru hasn't been aggressive like he was in the previous game, so he's on the defensive, but so far he's holding, maybe, just about.
And Hikaru's eyes there, darting all across the board, taking in all these tactics, wondering, does he capture the bishop first? Does he immediately go for queen takes pawn? Or will he have a more cautious, safe approach? I don't think that even exists in the position with the knight hitting the queen, the a2 pawn, and the e2 pawn. We see the bishops come off the board, a flurry of trades. Magnus will pick up the pawn, eventually bring his rook, slide it all the way across, and put some pressure on the second rank. It's still advantage Carlsen.
Still advantage Carlsen, partly because the white knight is so silly on the edge of the board. Yeah. Needs a few more moves to get back centralized.
So where do we find the follow-up plan now for Nakamura? That is the question. The pawn on a2 is being hit. The white knight on a4 looks a bit silly, like you just mentioned, David. There are a couple of problems to try and solve in this position. It is very much savable, very much possible to turn it around, but I think we're also reliant here on a little bit of inaccuracy from Carlsen, who still appears to hold the upper hand.
And there we go. Hikaru goes and pins the black bishop. Very logical move. Also hitting black's a5 pawn. But how can Carlsen react? That's the big question. Does he have the opportunity to go and grab a pawn on a2, or does he have something even better?
Well, Hikaru's also setting up another trick, right? You're hitting queen takes pawn, but that knight that we were earlier highlighting is headed to a big square. Knight b6, knight d7. He's just pinned Magnus's bishop on f8. And I think he's coming for that bishop. That knight could jump there by a c5 or b6, threatening knight d7, asking some questions to Carlsen. What do you have in mind as defense?
Big pin on that black bishop. The white knight has to get into the game. It's that simple. Without the knight, you're playing a piece down. That knight might never get another opportunity.
Was looking for ways to maybe try and dissuade that pin with a pin of our own. If the knight comes into c5, for example, can you get away with playing queen a7? But the rook on f1 protects f2, so unfortunately, as much as I want it to be, that's an empty threat.
Magnus trying to break the pin with the queen trade. He's done the hard work. He's won a pawn. And I don't think Hikaru can contemplate that queen exchange. There we go. He keeps the queens on the board. Still, the white knight is headed towards more healthy pastures. Can Magnus deal with that? The white rook not able to get into the game. That's the key.
Yeah, if you pick up that rook and put it on the 8th rank, it's game over for Magnus Carlsen. But it's far, far away from that. This is a dance between the queen and the knight against black's king and bishop on the 8th rank. And Magnus Carlsen has one move to stop that idea, to stop that knight from coming into the game.
How do you invest that move? Maybe the black rook can improve. You can't move the bishop anyway. The queen is needed as a defender. He goes pawn hunting, very logical. Hikaru can't really save that pawn long term. That's another issue.
No, it's very tempting, of course, to go after that pawn, and it looks very vulnerable. The eval bar really wanted us to play rook d2 there to stop the knight coming in, a bit of a prophylactic move, trying to stop white's plans in their tracks, but this makes so much sense.
I think what Magnus is saying is, you bring your knight in, I'm just going pawn grabbing there. I'll have two connected passes. My queen does a beautiful job of defending everything on the last rank. We're going to see this being played out.
Right.
Is Magnus about to get greedy? That might just give Hikaru's rook the time to join the party to get into the attack.
Oh, maybe we show this, because big moment for Magnus Carlsen. He's got almost a 2-minute advantage, but it's not going to be straightforward to convert here. If he does take that white pawn, goes 2 pawns up, suddenly look at the bar, it would have shifted. We're looking at the green analysis board, the white rook shifts across, and if black takes a timeout now, for example, pushes a pawn, knight takes bishop is one idea, queen recaptures, and the white rook pins, wins the black queen. Game over. Hikaru with a huge counter-attacking idea on the board. Ooh, Magnus, instead he forced the white knight to make a decision.
He does not go greedy in that position with all the dangers that existed. Instead, we see a trade-off, and that's just Magnus with what looks like a very healthy extra pawn in the position. You know, you could also sacrifice it at a4, b pawn moving up the board, complete control of the d-line, and with the knights gone, the attack looks a lot less menacing.
Hikaru hitting himself in the head just as he did yesterday in one of his matches. Look at this, a queen trade. You cannot get those queens off the board. That would be disastrous. He's setting a trap here. He's hoping that Magnus gets greedy with the black queen, allowing the white queen some checks. But Magnus, he's kept control so far. He wants those rooks off the board, all queens off the board. Either way, Magnus Carlsen would be winning. Any major piece trade gets him closer to his end goal.
It was such a well-laid plan by Hikaru. Grab another pawn, and I would have enough activity to take this game back to you. Carlsen, though, seeing exactly what was going on, chooses not to do that. And now this is proving very, very difficult indeed, because the pawns are rolling down the board on the queen side. This is feeling like Carlsen is going to be forcing an exchange sooner rather than later.
Ooh, this is flashy. The white rook cannot take that pawn. The black rook would come through to d1 and deliver some killer blows. If the white pawn recaptures, let's show the rook first. Rook takes pawn, there's a check. And if the white king shuffles to the side, checkmate on h1, game over. If the white pawn takes, Magnus there silencing the audience with a finger to the lips there. But pawn takes would allow the b pawn to run forward. Magnus looking very, very confident now. That might just immobilize the white rook, win the white rook. We might be about to see a decisive result.
That is an incredible move by Magnus. What a stylish way to finish this game off. And you know, that smile on his face, I think that wasn't just silencing the audience for now. He heard that applause in that last game. He knows the crowd is rooting for Team Falcons right now. This is his reply to that moment.
Wow, Magnus versus the Falcons. He's the last one standing in Team Falcons' way here at chess at the EWC. He takes a pawn, Hikaru Nakamura. It's a pawn race, but Black's pawn so much closer to promotion. He just needs one more piece to help shepherd it forward.
You absolutely love to see it, don't you? Magnus taking time out to raise a finger to his lips for the audience. Queen comes in to try and shepherd the pawn to safety. That is it. We have the victory. Magnus Carlsen goes 2.5 to 1.5 up in this semi-final with a fantastic bit of play. Really, really great moves there in game number 4 of this semi-final.
Not the first time you've seen Magnus Carlsen put his finger on the lips. A sure sign that he's done before in the chess world. It's not only a statement to his opponent, but also everyone watching. This is Magnus Carlsen saying he is the best.
Silencing the fans there in the arena, the Team Falcons fans, and silencing Hikaru Nakamura's chances in that game. That was brutal technique. The pawn push to a4 that we showed there, the clincher, and Hikaru had to resign as the black queen was shepherding that pawn through. This last move, the queen coming forward to d3, about to cost white his rook.
And
It's an absolutely packed house here inside the arena, and they had a fantastic treat in store. What a masterclass of an endgame there from Magnus Carlsen to really put Hikaru Nakamura through the ringer. There was nothing Hikaru could have done more at the end of that game. If there were any mistakes, if there was anything to learn from getting a different result, he would have had to look much earlier. Magnus was cranking the handle of that game for quite some time.
Yeah, you just can't play these Queen's Gambit positions against Magnus Carlsen. He's the pro. He's the world leader in understanding these structures.
I'm just waiting for the memes on the internet with what Magnus just did.
It's gonna
blast
happen.
from the past. You know, we've seen that before, and this is the second time I'm seeing him. A power statement by here, a bold one. You know, Magnus making his intentions clear in this matchup. 2.5 out of 4. If he wins the next one, he takes it. He takes the whole match. He goes through to the finals, and he starts with the white pieces.
And what a moment to be inside this arena, watching this match unfold. I said earlier we were busy inside. We're busy outside. This is live. This is the queue of people waiting to get in. They're, of course, not filing in during the games while moves are being played. But there's standing room only even outside the arena. And hey, guys, guess what? It's hot here, even in the evening. But it is worth it. It's hot outside. It's even hotter on the board.
Queuing up to see Cristiano Ronaldo. Oh, wait, is it Magnus Carlsen, the Cristiano Ronaldo of chess? Those fans out there in Riyadh, and there we go, the silencing of those fans.
Oh, I love it.
With a smile on his face.
That absolutely, I say will be a meme. That's already a meme. That's already been posted about 1,000 times on social media, I am sure. And Magnus wins in style. Now, that said, Magnus wins. He's 2.5, 1.5 up. It's match point for Team Liquid right now. That's big. But I want to point out, one of those 1.5 points from Hikaru Nakamura, that resulted from a win as well. A decisive result for Team Falcons is very much still on the cards.
Hikaru's been in this situation before, right? He was trailing Magnus after that first round loss and made his comeback. He got that win in, and he did it convincingly with the black pieces in the King's Indian defense. Can he do it again is the big question. If anybody can in the world. Will they back to the wall? Facing the GOAT, facing Magnus Carlsen, it is this guy. It is Hikaru Nakamura. He's got to channel all his belief. He cannot rely on that last game with White. He has to make the most of his chances. For now, Magnus makes sure that there is no King's Indian defense on the board in Game 5.
Exactly. That's got to be the #1 goal, right? If you were able to play the King's Indian again and you could just blitz everything out, presumably if you're Hikaru, you'd love that right now.
Exactly. Hikaru said his match strategy, his game plan was aggression. He showed it in his previous black game, King's Indian defense. Let's face it, crushed Magnus Carlsen. But will he be crushing his key come the end of the day? That depends on the next 2 games. It's the 4 knights variation here. The 4 knights Spanish with the bishops coming out, mimicking each other. Game of copycat so far. We'll see both sides castle. And Magnus, he tends to use this variation, at least he used it recently at the Norway Chess Super Tournament, if he wants a draw. Knight takes pawn now, and this game could fizzle out very quickly. Is this Magnus Carlsen saying to Hikaru, I'm going to bank this half point, I'm going to get so close to my goal, you have to win the next one on demand?
Magnus just took a big lesson from that last loss. Don't go into Hikaru Nakamura's territory, you know. Don't allow him those complex battles where tactics and tactics are all across the board.
Right.
I mean, Hikaru just had a crushing performance in that game with Black. This one, none of that will happen. Look at the pawn formation. Absolutely identical on both sides of the board. Opposite color bishop as well. We're going to be seeing a lot of trades on those 2 open lines at the center. Magnus is happy to take this, navigate this to the draw, and he's saying, Hikaru, you'll play white next one. Let's see what you've got.
Yeah, there's a bit of respect going on here. Not wanting anything untoward to happen, recognizing that Hikaru is perfectly capable of causing him those sort of problems. At the same time, though, because of the scoreboard pressure, not only can he afford to do this, it's a bit aggressive as well. I don't need anything to happen. You're the one that needs something to happen. Go on, show me.
And until this last couple of moves, the queen trade now, this is how I played chess as a youngster, copycat chess. And the black rook is about to slide across, all the rooks will disappear, just minor pieces left, opposite color bishops. That is all the ingredients for a draw. Wow, sprinting out here in Game 5, Magnus Carlsen, he wants this one to be over. He wants to save his energy for the all-important final clash, Game 6.
And I think I know what you wanted to point out. Just a few moves ago, the position completely mirroring, Black's pieces placed exactly as Magnus's was. Hikaru, Magnus playing copycat chess. A few differences right now, but nothing drastically changed. And we see the E-file tension does come on. More copycat chess on the board. All you got to do is put that rook on D8, but you're not going to get the time. That would have been aesthetic.
You're not playing G5 in this position, right? That starts getting a bit dicey. So finally, we're going to see a little bit of difference there. Bishop retreats to G6. There we go. But in principle, a lot of the same things apply that we've been talking about so far. The rooks get traded off. Oh, love that. The crowd going absolutely wild for this matchup. And I'm sure the memes are all over the place already.
Yeah, nice to see a real mixture out there in the arena. A couple of people holding up goat signs there. I'm assuming that's for Magnus. Might be for Hikaru, but also some falcon signs.
Yes.
And yeah, clear that support is split.
When you're playing the goat, you got to be a bird of prey. And that is Hikaru Nakamura right now for Team Falcons, but he needs that win to come back into this match. And look at what he's doing. He's making sure that Magnus doesn't get that final rook trade in from E1.
Right.
So he does keep the game alive, but not a real chance to fight for a lot here.
Yeah, it's always difficult, these positions, especially when the opponent is so set on a draw. How much risk do you take? You're always caught in two minds with Black, especially. I'm talking from Hikaru's point of view here. If you push too hard, you lose this game, you're done, you're out. If you agree to the draw, if you just calmly guide the game towards simplifications, more trades, a draw, fine. But you have to win with white in the last one. How much energy do you expend? That's the big question.
But I loved it. Those signs that our audience was very energetic, and thereby them having the goat on. There was this time in the chess world where Magnus and Hikaru's fans, they were quite divided. You could be one or the other. If you liked Magnus Carlsen, you couldn't like Hikaru, and the other way around. Hikaru fan, do not like Magnus Carlsen. But I think now, today, in the chess world, there's so much respect for both these players, and even between these two for each other, who've continuously pushed each other to their limits.
Look, I'll say it. It's difficult to like one and not the other, frankly. They've both accomplished so much. They're both have a really good relationship off the board. They have so much respect for each other. And frankly, when they meme off each other, it's just so much fun. Like, you absolutely love to see it, right? So right now, we're seeing their competitive over-the-board nature, and that's very important, of course. This is crunch time at the Esports World Cup. But frankly, these two players, absolutely phenomenal.
That reaction from Magnus right now? Slightly surprised with knight c4. I think he was expecting Hikaru to just go rook e8 and repeat the position. Handshakes, let's take it to the final game. But Hikaru says, not so quick.
Yeah, I love this last move from Hikaru. It does show that he's willing to test Magnus Carlsen, at least ask a couple of questions before the draw might be agreed. If Magnus isn't careful here, there are some pawns threatened for bishop, and now Hikaru offering a second bishop for knight trade, potentially, as he drops his bishop out to pin white's knight. Very interesting there, asking white's king a question.
Well, now we get to have one of our favorite topics of conversation, I think, on this commentator's desk, which is knights versus bishops. Having that bishop for knight trade, of course, means that Arjun Erigaisi is left with the bishops. But my mind can't help but think back to the earlier games when the knights absolutely dominated the bishops to give us the first point of the match. So are the bishop pair here, is that going to be helping Arjun?
I think that's a great question, and I think Hikaru knows that Arjun loves to play with knights. And the reason for that is every single attacking player on the planet prefers knights to bishops in a more general situation because they're just great attackers.
Yeah.
And of course, there are exceptions to the rule, depends on the position and all of that, but knights over bishop when it comes to your aggressive ability. And Arjun for now makes a retreating move, but to your point, I think it's possible, he also came in with an idea and a threat. It wasn't only to take Arjun's last remaining knight on the board, but Black's knight was about to jump to a4, doubling down on that pinned knight. So Arjun's mysterious queen retreat takes control of that knight a4 threat, which would have landed on the board, but now there's another knight jump. Knight to e4 instead, and Arjun uses the queen to defend the pinned knight.
Hikaru really doesn't like that knight on c3, does he? We get to see a knight into a4 as well.
We got to see a pre-move there by Arjun on his screen. He did put pawn takes bishop if it would have happened as a move right there. If Hikaru was to choose bishop takes knight, Arjun's ready with his response. It's not going to be queen takes bishop.
I've come to realize there's only 2 times when a safe move is 100% a safe move. A pre-move even is 100% safe, and that's when it's a capture, so you put your own piece onto another of your own pieces. That move would only ever happen if your opponent takes something, or if you've checked your opponent and they only have 1 legal response. You can play the next move as an immediate follow-up. Anything else comes with a little bit of risk, so that's why we see some red on Arjun Erigaisi's screen as he gets ready to play B takes C3. Pawn takes whatever lands on that square. Okay, let's choose a side. Which way is the black king going? What do we foresee in the future?
It's got to be kingside, right? You can do it now, nice and quick. You're applying a lot of pressure. White's not about to win a tempo against you. It's your agenda. Might as well do it in one, right?
To me, that makes a lot of sense. And also given the fact that Arjun has this beautiful bishop on f4. So if you ever went long castle with your king, hiding to safety in the corner with b8, a8 will be incredibly difficult. So it just feels a lot safer on the king side there.
How about the white king? That was my follow-up question. What do you foresee?
We're going to throw that back to you, David Howell.
Probably to the king side, to the right side.
I'm scared about the lack of a c-pawn. I get that the king can move to b1 and it becomes relatively safe, but when you have 1 less pawn, it just makes me a little bit iffy.
It's a bit trickier for me. I think,
wow.
What is going on with Hikaru Nakamura and retreating moves today? Why is he doing this? He's down on the clock, lost game, same narrative.
That is huge. And it might not look like it.
Well.
It's still a normal position, but his knight just came from f6, went to e4, went back immediately to f6. He gave Arjun 2 free moves. No chess professional wants to do that. And Arjun does go to the queenside after all.
Okay.
Wow, Arjun smelling weakness in Hikaru. Hikaru's down a full minute on the clock, clearly playing very, very tentatively here. And Arjun wants to strike.
And I think that's the key point. Arjun's not smelling weakness on the board, but more psychologically on Hikaru. Just the shakiness that he's shown, not only in game 1, but the way he's approached the opening from here. How many times has that bishop moved? How many times has that knight moved? That's breaking every single opening principle in chess even. And look at that, another inaccuracy. He brings the queen out, and if Arjun decides to trade the bishop now, that queen would have moved multiple times as well.
Yeah, on his first 15 moves, Hikaru made 5 knight moves. He made 3 dark squared bishop moves, and what was it? 3 light squared bishop moves as well. It's all about the minor pieces for Hikaru. He does eventually get castled. He's lucky that the center is locked, that it's blocked, so he's got away with it. This loss of time, but it's bizarre seeing a world-class player show such indecision.
This has almost justified a little bit some of what Hikaru has done, because Tanya mentioned that brilliant bishop on f4 makes it a little bit dicey to go queenside. But now that the opposing bishop has come back to d6, okay, we didn't expect the bishop retreat, but it does a great job of neutralizing the bishop on f4, and suddenly there's a little bit of justification for what Hikaru has done.
It was really the only way to get your king to the queen side, where he perhaps feels it a lot safer, because if you go opposite side castling, then Arjun was ready with the pawn storm, g4, g5 coming in. You know what? Arjun doesn't care. This is why he's called the madman over the chessboard. His king is on the same side, but he's still going for that pawn attack. Again, the theme, when your opponent's knight is on b6 or on g6, you always have to keep the flank pawn movement in your mind. a4, a5, kick that knight away.
Yeah, Magnus did something very similar to Nihal Sarin in one of his successful quarterfinal games. In the meantime, we did see a trade of bishops, and there we go, the white pawn trying to act as a battering ram, opening up the black king. He defends a pawn on the other flank. Arjun does have doubled f-pawns, so endgames might be favorable for black and the knights, but short term we see the eval bar struggling to fully decide who has the advantage. It does look like it's slightly easier for Arjun just because the black king a bit weaker.
And the pawns around the king as well weakened now because of that a-pawn moving forward. You could always shift your attention, moving that d1 rook, which right now stares at its own bishop and pawn, rook c1, try and target the weaknesses around the black king. It just feels like so much easier to be white. You mentioned an endgame. I'm going to predict there's going to be no endgame in this game.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like we could see something explosive happen a lot sooner rather than later. The queen moving out to d7, having half an eye on the pawn on h3, but that's not really the hottest property on the board right now. Nonetheless defended. And if the knight or bishop for white move too far from defending the e4 square. Maybe Hikaru's looking at planting one of his knights onto the e4 square as well. So there's not that much maneuverability yet. I feel like there needs to be something to unlock the rest of White's attack.
Ooh, he goes back. I was expecting him to jump into the center, even at the cost of a pawn, Hikaru. But very, very passive play from him. And now Arjun's trying to hit from all angles. Arjun's not held back at all. Pawns flying forward on the king side, flying forward on the queen side. This last move given a question mark, but it's very tempting for any human to try and break open, potentially with the sacrifice, the black king.
And the speed with which Arjun played also counts for something. Hikaru's got to be feeling it himself, right? That the things are just not in the rhythm today. In that game 1, in game 2 as well. But he's the one player who's able to shift these gears really quickly. And it's far from over this one. You know, we're talking about that a6 pawn, a huge strength for Arjun. But it can, in certain positions, also come under fire. That queen from d7 could slide over to c8. And then suddenly you're wondering, how am I defending that a6 pawn? So you've got to be watching out for these ideas. Knight c7 on the board.
And it's a big moment to sacrifice or not to sacrifice for Arjun Erigaisi. He's burning a bit of time here, and that's because there's a huge move, a huge decision that is available to him. Knight takes b6. We're showing it on our analysis board. The pawn has to recapture because the black queen is hit. White's queen jumps forward. He doesn't go for this. The black king sliding in the corner. The key detail here is the black knight on d6 holding the b7 square, so there's no checkmate. The white queen cannot deliver the killer blow. White's rook here, though, could have slid across to c1 with a big attack brewing and long-lasting compensation. He didn't go for this, Arjun. I wonder if he'll regret it a bit later. And, okay, we see the game continue, but now Black's knights are in perfect defensive harmony. I would have gone for that. I just assumed Arjun, with his nickname, the Madman, the style, the fire that he likes to bring, he might have been tempted if he weren't already ahead in the match.
How low would the clocks have had to be for Arjun to have gone for that? I feel like that would have been a function of time. The more time you have to calculate it out, the less likely we would have seen the sacrifice, right? If it was a minute each on the clock, does Arjun go for that?
I think also depends on the match situation, but you're absolutely right. If you're relying on your intuition and your instinctive play, then you just play for it if you don't have time to overthink it. But Arjun, he's rushing through these decisions. Even in the last game, he didn't take knight takes bishop. He didn't take his chance in that moment. A moment missed, and in this one, another opportunity missed there.
Hikaru has grabbed a pawn. The black queen took a pawn on h3, now trying to force a trade. And to take or not to take, that is the question. Arjun, if he takes that queen, would have allowed the black pawns to connect. And look at this, Hikaru annoyed at himself. He's missed this last move, a knight retreat. Knight retreat moves are the hardest to see in chess, they say. And now Arjun's piece about to jump in with some checks. Might regain the pawn on d5. Anyone's game now.
And it's going to be so much about the clock as well right now, with both players around. 2.5 minutes for Arjun, 3 minutes 15 seconds for Hikaru, and the endgame full of opportunities. But I think White's the one pushing. Rook e5, I like that move, puts pressure on d5. If you trade, you solve Arjun's problems off those doubled f pawns. Harder decisions for Hikaru to take here.
Yeah, the black king is actually in the kill zone. Even with the queens off, that black king is not entirely safe. Rooks are coming, knights are coming, so Hikaru needs to get pieces off the board.
Now that swapping of rooks there allowed at least a little mini V formation of pawns in the center of the board. So that's going to be looking relatively solid. We've also got the pawn on d5 looking a little bit loose as well. But compared to how things were before, if you look at the relative activity of pieces between Hikaru Nakamura and Arjun Erigaisi, there's not a huge amount of difference because the black rook can move now potentially after a couple of knight maneuvers. And it's not looking as difficult to come up with a plan for Hikaru as it was before.
Yeah, and if rooks disappear, I should mention Hikaru wins on the spot, guaranteed, due to the black h-pawn pushing forward. There's no rival. That is a passed pawn. If rooks disappear, Hikaru wins. Knights disappear, Hikaru has the advantage. But for now, Arjun needs to keep pieces on the board, needs to somehow combine them and go for the black king.
It's an extra pawn for black, and that's Arjun offering a repetition right now. He jumps back with the knight. It's an inaccuracy, and this is when Hikaru leans in because he smells weakness on Arjun. You know, he knows he's got that extra pawn. Arjun offering a draw would usually mean, with a repetition, would mean that he's not happy with his position.
Yeah, you have two choices here as Hikaru Nakamura. You can agree to the draw, bring the black king back, allow it to get checked, and a dance between knight and king. Or you just say, I'm calling your bluff, I'm going to push my pawn. H4 here, pushing Harry the h-pawn forward for glory, trying to make a new queen as quickly as possible. That is the other one, but risk attached.
huge risk attached because white's also threatening rook to c7, knight c6, rook takes pawn, and that would be just a checkmate. So it's not only the d5 pawn that's hanging, there are checkmating ideas against the black king.
If you're Hikaru, do you not instantly play the king back anyway to repeat once to buy yourself time and then think? It's interesting that he didn't even repeat once.
Oh, he didn't, and Arjun has blundered. He was going for a checkmate. The key was not to allow the white knight into the square and allow a checkmate on a7, the Arabian checkmate. Instead, that square has been covered by the black knight. This is why an exclamation mark has appeared, and now he's 3 squares away. Black's h-pawn is 3 moves away from becoming a new queen. Arjun might just be too slow now to defend.
How do you even bring it? Your knight, your rook, your king, all offside from stopping that h-pawn from moving forward. That knight on d4, the only move that Hikaru had to defend the checkmating idea. Of course he finds it. And we've been talking about Hikaru struggling perhaps to find the flow, find the rhythm. It's wins like these, it's moments like these that puts you right back into the game.
Yeah, and it's bullet time now. Look at the red appear on Arjun's clock. He's tanked. He's realized he needs to go into reverse mode here, bring the white rook back to stop the h-pawn, but that is desperation. He goes all in, rook takes pawn, but Hikaru just needs to push. That h-pawn is becoming a new queen.
3 steps away. Nothing's gonna stop it. Arjun gambling with his own e-pawn, but Hikaru's queen comes with a check on h1.
That is the key here. Arjun Erigaisi just isn't quick enough. Black gets there first in this race. Hikaru only has 1 winning move. The black knight cannot move away and take that pawn as the white knight jumps into c6. He needs to just keep going.
He's gonna find this. A minute and a half. Knight takes pawn, loses on the spot. You get checkmate, and of course Hikaru finds it. He's gonna check Arjun's king, make a queen, a new queen on the board, and then once the king moves away, he'll go on the defense and stop Arjun from doing the same.
Why is he not making a new queen? Why is he not pushing forward? He's trying to calculate the rest of the sequence, Hikaru, but the first move is obvious. You make a new queen now with a check, and then you think.
You do it with a check, exactly. That is forced. And he does it, and he's got to have seen it through now.
Now the black queen retreats. That's very flashy. Any rook check now from white will be blocked by that black queen. It's going to throw itself in the way. Hikaru is going to be a rook up once the dust settles. We see the head bob from him. 1 minute against 24 seconds. He's about to strike back in this match.
His entire rook up. Arjun plays on, but it's not going to be for too long. And there it is. Arjun resigns. Hikaru Nakamura back in the match.
At the Esports World Cup, Arabian checkmate threatened. We can think of very few fitting maneuvers here that would allow Hikaru Nakamura back into this match. It is game on. 1.5 in the 3rd place decider.
Wow, that one turned so quickly. Arjun here, we see him lingering in the arena, trying to play through, realize where it slipped away. For so long, he had a big advantage, but it let it slip. He gambled, he went for the black king. Hikaru too good in defense, and it was that h-pawn pushing that decided this game.
It was actually a beautifully played game by Arjun until that very last blunder that he did. And he's going to be kicking himself for missing this opportunity. Losing with white in this match, having a lead, is huge. And Hikaru at this moment had calculated his way through, seen this beautiful defense of bringing the queen back, and there was nothing to be done in this position. You recapture, you play another move, but eventually you resign. You're down a rook.
Arjun Erigaisi pressuring for most of that game, opting not to take the sacrifice on b6 as well, and then unfortunately, a blunder later on allowing Hikaru Nakamura back. That means the match situation in this 3rd place match is all square. 1.5. When we come back from this break, we'll be going into game number 4.
Level up your gaming experience with over 8 billion playlists, only on Spotify, the official audio streaming partner for the 2025 Esports World Cup.
What's up, everybody? I'm Trevor, and I'm joined here by Ali Reza, your first ever chess finalist for the Esports World Cup in its debut year. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
When you look back on how the tournament's played out, how do you feel? Because to me, you're the best player.
Yeah, I think it's a it was very tough tournament. I think other Magnus is also playing really great. He'll play against Hikaru now, but it will be a very interesting match to see.
It's going to be interesting. I love your smile because I think no matter who wins, it's going to be a fantastic final. Now, I want to talk to you about the club championship. You're wearing a Team Falcons jersey. And the two teams that are in the top 5 that have not won a tournament yet are Team Falcons and Team Liquid.
Yes.
And I think the expected final is you versus Magnus. So what would it mean to pick up the title for the first ever chess tournament for both you and Team Falcons?
Yeah, I think we have still a chance to guarantee tonight the victory. But if that doesn't happen, I'll try my best tomorrow. I think it's very important for club championship also. But I think already it was a great step to get to top 2. Yeah.
Can I ask you, did you know that before your game an hour ago, Team Falcons was 3rd in the rankings? Because of your single performance, you're now 2nd.
Yeah, I think Hikaru was also. We had same point as Hikaru.
Yes,
so
but you've guaranteed it. You did it first.
Yeah.
You did it first.
Sure.
Okay, I want to ask. Obviously, I'm aware. French, Persian. Looked into a little bit of your background. What's it like playing under the Team Falcons moniker here in Riyadh, and what's the local support been like?
It's fantastic. I think people are very nice here. They're so warm here. It's crazy, and everywhere we go, they're really helpful people, and we feel like home here.
Tell me about some of the other esports. Obviously, there's a number of other titles. Do you play any other games? Do you watch any other games? What else are you going to be tuning in for the rest of the event?
Yeah, I have PS5 at home. I play FIFA all the time. So, our CEO is actually FIFA player.
MS Desai. I mean, listen, I know the history. That's where the Falcons started.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
Okay, one last question before we move on. Seeing chess at a stage like this, in a period where chess was sort of blowing up in COVID, and now it's kind of adjusting.
Yeah.
What is that like as a professional player?
Yeah, it's here at least is a dream come true. I think for chess people, because it's the top stage, and at least my dream was to always be online tournaments, fast tournaments at the high stage. So looking at this is just like a dream.
For the dream, do you want to give a shout out to any of the fans or any viewers at home? You can say it directly to the camera. Yeah,
I really thank the Falcon fans because they are always here. They are always cheering us even things doesn't go well, and just that they are here, we feel them. And
those Falcon fans are now Ali Reza fans. Thank you so much.
Arjun Erigaisi drew first blood in this 3rd place match, and a tense draw in game number 2 was followed by a strike back from the Falcons in game 3. It's now 1.5 apiece between Gen.G and Falcons going into the second half of regulation time, I should stress, here in the 3rd place match. We could even see an Armageddon here. This match has been very entertaining so far.
I mean, the storyline it's following is exactly what happened yesterday against Magnus. You know, Hikaru from the back foot, finally equalizing the match and you know, taking his chances. And I think this is exactly what he needed. The win that he had from the position that he had, converting it in the end with the precision that he did. Once again, David, he's gone back to being a favorite. Equalizing the score with the black pieces, starts with white in the next game.
Exactly, it's only half-time in this match, but he has 2 whites remaining from the next 3. Hikaru, he's at least historically much more dangerous with the white pieces. Arjun letting the win slip, losing with white. He's got to feel like at least some momentum has been lost. I think Hikaru there, as we see a lot of his fans in the arena, he becomes the favorite yet again. It was a shaky start to the day for him, but the fact that he's on level footing despite not being at his best yet, that is a good sign for Hikaru fans.
And now we go into game number 4. The second half of this third place match is commencing, blitzing things out very, very quick. We have King's Indian sort of setup coming out, and as we know, Hikaru absolutely loves this sort of thing.
Yeah, it's the King's Indian meets the Slav, a bit of a hybrid here.
Meets the Grunfeld.
Meets the Grunfeld, exactly.
It's everything. They're playing everything.
Especially after that pawn trade, it looks more Grunfeld-esque, as Hikaru, he loves moving the same piece multiple times in the opening, at least in the last couple of days. That knight went forward to f3, e5, c4, back to e5, back to f3. Don't try this at home, kids. White is behind in piece development, but white occupies the center with pawn. So you have to give something to get something, and Arjun here, how can he compensate for the fact he has no central influence?
And I think that's the aim, right? Trying to get that influence into the game. You have to try to break in the center, usually either by pushing the c-pawn or the e-pawn. And I think that's the idea that perhaps Arjun will be aiming for. You need to time it really well with black, because the moment you go c5, you open up Hikaru's monstrous bishop on g2. So unless there's a concrete line, or you know, you're sure of your path ahead, that's a move you need to wait on. Arjun, meanwhile, continues to improve the position of his pieces, now setting up the battery that's about to offer a bishop trade on h3.
Yeah, and this pawn structure actually gave Alireza Firouzja a lot of success against Arjun in their semi-final. It came from a slightly different branch of this opening, but Hikaru maybe taking inspiration from his Falcons teammate there. Maybe he asked Alireza, what is Arjun's weakness? What should I do with white against him? And this is what they've settled with. You have options here. You could take even more control over the center if you are Hikaru Nakamura, push your pawn forward to e4, or you can slide your rook across maybe to e1 to dodge any potential bishop trades. Instead, he moves his queen.
And we're not liking that, at least the Silicon isn't liking that. Another reasonably natural move. That bishop can't move out of the way to h1, of course, because the rook is very much still on the f1 square. The game continues, but this is, yeah, white still has a couple of developmental problems to solve, and wow, not liking that either. Again, some question marks next to, frankly, really natural-looking moves.
Yeah, I don't think that's a blunder or anything. Maybe there were opportunities to strike in the center for Arjun that just will no longer exist, as Hikaru very naturally brings a bishop out. I don't think we can fault either player, but I think just strategically, in general, white has an advantage due to the pawn center. It's that simple. Small advantage is reflected in the eval bar right now.
But that's got to be the breakthrough idea, right? Because if you look at the pawn formation, Arjun lacking the space for his pieces, the majors and the minors, you at some point have to trade the bishops, you know, that Catalan bishop that we speak of in G2, on G2, and eventually strike in the center with the move c5, if you're Arjun here. Again, needs to time it well, but it's what he wants to do. It's also his style of play. You know, rather than just waiting and playing passively, he wants to create his chances. But so far, Hikaru's just made all the healthy moves in the position.
Well, let me ask you, what's stopping Arjun from doing that right now?
Good question.
Yeah, from breaking out?
Yeah, just taking the bishop and trying to get c5 in before the c-line is clear. The rook has gone on to d1 instead of c1, so maybe there's an opportunity here?
Yeah, and black playing the move c5 is very likely in the near future. That will always, however, be met by a white pawn stepping forward to d5. I'll just draw those arrows as we will see that theme exist for the next dozen moves or so. A question mark instead by Arjun here, retreating his knight. He's maybe getting ready to challenge in the center with another e5 push. Either way, it's so passive for black. That poor black queen cannot move. She's got no vision into this game. And again, Hikaru just playing happy moves here. He's playing natural moves. Rook's in the center, knights out, bishop out. Looks like textbook opening play here from Hikaru Nakamura.
total harmony for white.
Yes.
In the center of the board, you control the center with your pawns on e4, d4, you've placed everything, and all the moves that he's made doesn't require overthinking at all, right? You're improving every single piece and you're making them quickly. Meanwhile, because of lack of space, it's a completely different story for Arjun, who's not even being able to find a way to connect his rooks. Look at the bishop on f4, making sure the black queen remains stuck on c8. The last move by Arjun, he's dying to break out right now. He wants to get that e5 on the board as quickly as possible.
You can even play moves like b3 and just really clamp down on black's options here so that that knight on b6 literally has nowhere to go. The amount of prophylaxis, Hikaru can just choose at this point what direction he wants the game to go in. It feels like all the initiative is with white.
And at least we got to the bottom of why Arjun's move rook to d8 earlier was given a question mark, because bringing it back to e8 was necessarily a couple of moves later. Big problem here for Arjun is that he cannot lash out. He cannot strike in the center. The move he wants to play is pawn to e5, but we would have seen some trades, and black's h6 pawn is hanging in so many different variations. He wishes it were back one square. Knight on f8, no checkmate, that's what they say, but that knight on f8 is just a sad piece, and it's one that he hates.
So, quick club level chess question here. Does king h7 solve any of black's problems if h6 is an issue?
It might do in the near future. That's why Arjun is tying his king down now. The white queen staring down a diagonal towards that black king, which is paralyzed. Had to defend the f7 point. I think that was maybe next on the docket, so
okay.
Arjun tries to prevent it. Oh, sorry, Hikaru tries to prevent it, I should say. And now Arjun driving his pieces slightly further forward, but another question mark given. Is now the moment to strike for Hikaru Nakamura?
And again, it comes down to those trigger points, right? When do you know it's time to get concrete in the position to create those critical decisions? Every single piece of Hikaru is playing beautifully, is placed, maximized to their potential. This might be that moment where he does push one of those central pawns forward, gaining more space, and, asking some serious questions to Arjun.
Don't forget, though, if he does push one of those pawns forward, it is very committal, so he needs to make sure he gets a concrete advantage from it. Are we looking at d5, e5? Could the h-pawn even get chucked forward? What's the committal move here?
I think it's going to be d5. I like h5 as well. Throw that h-pawn, alpha 0-esque in. But d5 seems like the forcing move here. You're hitting the knight. There are also this tension between the bishop and the knight, and there it arrives on the board. Hikaru agrees with you, John. It happened. Pawn takes pawn, and now a decision to be made. Do you capture the knight? Do you jump in with your own knight at the center of the board? Pawn takes pawn is the choice. Again, not easy for Arjun where to decide to place his knight. He jumps forward, attacking the white queen.
You called it, Tanya. I mean, this is the choice that Hikaru Nakamura has gone. Now, this is a very aggressive counterattacking move with the knight to c5. So the question will be where white's queen chooses to go off the back of it. If you retreat to c2, then you run the risk of some sneaky pins with the black queen opposing on c7.
Yep, the white queen has a few moves, but no, it's a counterattack against the black queen and an instant reply from Arjun Erigaisi. A very nice intermediate move there, a Zwischenzug we would call it in chess. Just before you have to react to your opponent's threat, you create a threat of your own, and the black queen had to move. If she had fallen, there would have been a knight fork as well in the process, so no queen trade yet. And Hikaru now has a maybe slightly more kind of wide variety of choices for where to plant his own queen. 4 safe squares for white, and which one's he going to choose? He's got to attack the black knight either way.
Hikaru's body language, the way he's been playing this game, his moves, how he's placed the pieces. Last game, he was back in the match. I think what I see from him, he's ready to take the lead in this match. He's attacking the queen, not thinking about defending his own. Now he's going to move it to an active square. I'll be surprised if he decides to trade the bishop for the knight, just losing the possibility of challenging. And as I say that, commentators curse. Bishop takes knight on the board. He's going for some direct ideas here. Attacks the queen. Is Arjun running out of escape squares?
Yeah, there's a fork in the air. The queens might well come off on this next move now, but that white knight is guaranteed to win one of the 2 black rooks. It's a material advantage for Hikaru Nakamura. He takes the rook in the corner. He's calculated this all. One of the white rooks might fall now, but then the black knight would chop off, and at the end, white would have an extra piece. If that white knight is captured in the corner, Hikaru will save his rook. It's a bishop and 2 pawns for that rook, level material for now, but so many open lines.
We've introduced a whole bunch of new imbalances into this position. This is going to get very interesting indeed. Advantage Nakamura, of course, he wanted to introduce these imbalances into the game. He is now dictating terms to Arjun Erigaisi. The game is definitely not won, but it's certainly white now, very much on the front foot.
And you know, for Arjun, it's bishop and 2 pawns for the rook. And if you do the math, that's enough compensation. That's 5 points apiece for both players. But the problem is the black knight on a8 is really stuck there because you can't allow the white rook to swoop onto that 7th rank. So it's really about the piece activity. Meanwhile, for Hikaru, that knight from d2 is about to jump to e4 and further into the position closer to the black pawns, creating threats. So it just feels like Arjun's too late to get those minors into the game to get the pawns rolling up.
Yeah, and this is, again, one area of Arjun Erigaisi's chess that he might be working on in the near future. He doesn't like defending these technical endgames. It's not just that. Of course, he's starting on the back foot here quite heavily. It's an uphill struggle, mainly because of the black knight. The black knight, if it could be improved, the black rook, if it were more active, maybe there are some drawing chances. He does try to activate that rook. We'll see the white knight threaten black's bishop now and defended by its king. Judgment call. Is he going to take that bishop off the board, Tanya?
Very tempting to do it, but I think he's going to wait. I like the position of the knight also because it can jump to the left side and attack that pawn on b7. The computer doesn't love it, but it also looked like the kind of move that you want to make, provoking some weaknesses, eventually trying to target the a7 pawn as well, with one of the rooks sliding over to the a line.
Yeah, and it's a provocative move here. If black pushes a pawn forward to b6, maybe the most natural reaction to the fact that that pawn is hit, the white knight will happily retreat and then look at the black piece in the corner. It will be a block of dead wood there. And instead, in the end, he decides to attack the white knight. At least he's getting active, Arjun. He's given one of the pawns back, so now white does have a concrete material advantage. But at least there is some pressure. I do like this last decision, at least, from Arjun.
He had to do it. He has to try to create some activity from his pieces. The knights do come out. It might be time for Hikaru to improve the position of his own rooks, get them into the game to make the most of the material advantage.
We're all taking a look at when the rook was going to come into the 7th. That hasn't really happened yet, but with the rook to d1 here, it's beginning to look like we're threatening potential for a knight to jump in, for example, trade off a pair of minor pieces and then get in behind. Now's not quite the right time, of course, because the bishop's defending the pawn on e7, but at some opportune moment, that's got to be what Hikaru's thinking. Pushing the a-pawn forward now, thinking about getting into the endgame, and Hikaru now choosing to go in, not to the 7th, but to the back rank.
And it comes with a threat, right? Rook b8, pinning that black knight is the big idea. That square had to be defended. Arjun does it, but Hikaru knows that he should be pushing for the edge, and I think that head shake is more of maybe that small frustration that he allowed this piece activity of Arjun's.
Exactly, that black knight got out. It cost Arjun a pawn, but it's a very worthwhile investment there. And the black bishop does look like it controls a lot of squares, maybe regretting the opportunity, kind of not taking the opportunity earlier to trade white's knight for that black bishop.
The bishop on, the knight rather, on c5 is the only defender of the pawn on b3 right now. So bishop d6 looks like such a natural move for black to play as well. So the plan for Arjun Erigaisi looks relatively straightforward to follow. The computer not liking the rook going to e8 though.
Yeah, that was the only piece caging the black knight. The black knight was actually trapped. It didn't have any squares to use. Now it can enter the center. Another idea, kicking away the white knight from the defense of b3 that you just mentioned there, John. Also available if the black bishop slides back to d6. Can come forward to d4 as well. Does feel like Hikaru is just losing the thread a bit. He's been playing quite quickly up until this last turn, spending 30 seconds there. I do feel that he wants to play a bit on the clock.
So is the idea then that the knight comes to d5 to accomplish the same thing instead, and if white moves the rook back to d8 to attack the knight, then you play bishop d6, and now your knight's out of the corner.
Exactly. It feels like this is the key move that we're showing on the board, getting the black knight in. Okay, the bar slightly rises after Arjun's move instead. Maybe a small missed opportunity, but still in the balance here. Arjun probably should be holding this endgame a majority of the time, but the clock is going to play such a huge role. How many times have we seen Hikaru Nakamura grind his opponents down in a long endgame with a bit of a helping hand from the time?
And when it comes down to those last few seconds, that's going to be incredibly tough for Arjun. Arjun's a super fast player, and he's usually the one who's ahead on the clock. But when it comes to time scrambles, I think Hikaru Nakamura is a clear, big favorite in this one. He's not as good because he's just not as used to handling time pressure. Arjun Aragaisi, you just don't see him coming down to those final few seconds. We saw that, how it worked against Ali Reza, to absolute disaster for Arjun. So at all costs, he has to keep those extra minutes on the clock to be able to defend this. Hikaru not happy with his position.
He's been shaking his head for the last 30 seconds. Very clearly here. Not happy with what's just happened. The White Knight doesn't have many safe squares. If you retreat that White Knight either to C3 or D2, you might just get pinned by the Black Rook. If you step your king forward, poke its face forward, then you'll get checked back. You might have to defend that knight with your pawn. We'll see a check here from Arjun Aragaisi, and the White King will be forced back. Hikaru still in the driver's seat, but the clock now suddenly not in his favor anymore.
Is the idea maybe to zigzag the king via E2 to D3 and the knight on E4 just about holds this together? I mean, it's looking a little bit ropey, but I think, does it even hold? I'm not even sure.
Yeah, I think that's the plan. But, Arjun wondering whether to even push the White King back yet, maybe looking for something else. The one thing you don't want to allow is the two White Rooks to get into the 8th rank. There might be some checkmating ideas behind the Black Army, but Arjun does centralize. Beautiful pieces for Arjun, but now pinned by the White Rook.
And with the speed with which Hikaru responded, it was almost like he was expecting this move on the board. It did come with a trap of its own. The knight on E4 could in some positions be picked up, and some forking ideas on F6. Hikaru just continuously looking unhappy with the choices that he's making, but he still holds the advantage. He's still doing pretty well on the clock as well as the board.
Quite calm, Hikaru. The heart rate down under 90. It hasn't always been that way, especially yesterday, but even in the match so far today. And the quick moves coming, the 40-second time difference. Arjun has to speed up. We've all been there. We've all been checkmated by Hikaru. Lost games due to the clock. He cannot allow himself to get under the 1-minute mark.
The clock has not been a huge factor in this matchup just yet. Through the middle game, both players here, both contenders, have done a reasonably good job of maintaining their time management. But as we go on and on, as we get further and further in this game, small differences start to mean a lot. 2 minutes 30 plays 1 minute 50. Hikaru Nakamura, arguably the faster player with more time. In another minute or so, this will start becoming critical.
Well, if you're Hikaru right now, you also want to try to get some trades into the position. I think he wants to make that possible. If you can get the rooks off the board, you should be winning on the spot. But that isn't the case right now. He does fall back with the rook, defending that bishop on B6. How is Hikaru going to make progress? And will 2 minutes be enough to convert his advantage into a full point?
You can see the focus now. Hikaru switching modes, switching up the pace. He's just playing useful moves. Okay, bit of a scratch there under the headphones. He's just trying to get into the flow state, into the zone. And the Team Falcons player tries to turn this endgame in his favor. Not easy to find moves for Arjun. He just has to hope and sit there. Oh, and sometimes it's better not to do anything. He's pushed a pawn forward. That's only weakened the Black King. His pawn structure now, those pawns won't move backwards. Those pawns vulnerable.
Just sitting is not Arjun's one of Arjun's strengths. He's a player who always wants to do something on the board. You know, most times it works to his favor, but sometimes it backfires. Like when you end up creating weaknesses for yourself. Arjun now tries to bring the king to the defense, but that trade of knights could have only favored Hikaru. He's up material. Any trade favors white.
Yeah, especially the rooks coming off the board. Some scenarios, if the black pawns were further back, you could trade off rooks, especially if the queen side is liquidated in the meantime. Black's bishop very passive. 1 minute plays 1 minute 45 though. That is the key factor in this position.
Pieces now continuing to move a little bit faster now. We're feeling the sense of urgency. Hikaru Nakamura forcing Arjun Aragaisi under a minute now. And even though it looks like white is a bit stronger on the board, anything can happen in a time scramble. Here we go.
But this is all turned around. Arjun's about to win a pawn on h5, and that's a big pawn to win. You know, you move your king back, the h-pawn starts moving forward. You can imagine the 4 versus 2 on that right flank will give you something to play for, counterplay to play for, which is why Hikaru boxes up the black king. Now a check on h1 would be game over. Rook c1, rook h1, watch out Arjun.
Well, he trades off rooks in desperation. Arjun Aragaisi here. Maybe it's an inspired decision, but look at this. He's dropping one of the pawns he just picked up. Given a question mark from Hikaru, but I think the most natural move in the position. Now it's 3 versus 4 in terms of pawns. Black King very, very active. Can Hikaru maneuver his rook to win Black's pawn on the queen side? That is the key to the position.
Arjun scared of those checkmating ideas, gets the rooks off the board, but turns out that is a bad decision right now. He needs to defend. That bishop just stopped, paralyzed from getting active. And for Hikaru, the good news is the b3 pawn cannot be targeted by that bishop. Arjun attacks, he's activated it. Now the bishop will defend it from b4.
Black King is actually cut off on the edge of the board as well. He went the wrong direction. Hikaru tries to open up a path for the White King. It's all about the clock though. And there we go. Hikaru might have clinched it with this last move. There's a big weakness on the f5 square. That black pawn is doomed potentially. He just needs to move his king here, waste a move, Hikaru, and the black bishop is stuck. Whichever direction you go, you're going to lose a pawn. The black king coming. 15 seconds though. It's just physically impossible for Arjun to make the rest of these moves. You can't even pre-move because the white rook is going to hunt down that black bishop.
10 seconds, he loses the pawn, and Arjun Aragaisi resigns. Hikaru Nakamura with the fist bump takes the lead.
Hikaru Nakamura, he was a point down in this third place match, managing to win a second game now to go 2.5, 1.5 up. Team Falcons now have the upper hand in this third place match over Gen G, putting Arjun Aragaisi in a high pressure situation. Nakamura now just 1 point away from taking it.
Hikaru, he has upped his game. He's fully awake now and he smells weakness in his opponent. Arjun just couldn't really fight Hikaru from a level playing field in that one. The opening went a bit wrong. Hikaru getting an advantage and never let up. Eventually pressure on both the board and the clock was decisive. Very impressive, I'm going to say, from Hikaru Nakamura, but Arjun needs to rediscover the magic that he had at the beginning of the day.
Hikaru's won the last 2 on the trot with both the white and the black pieces. It looks like whatever he's changed, whatever's going on, he's not only woken up, he is smelling blood, and he's now 1 win away from taking it.
He's just found his flow into this match, you know, a little shaky at the start, you know, the first few games, but then ever since getting that win with the black pieces, finds his rhythm. The Falcon is soaring. Hikaru Nakamura definitely back in the game, feeling himself. You can look on the screen and you know that this is a different Hikaru from the start of the day.
And now, with Game 5 and Game 6 to go, we need to see one of those be a win for Arjun Aragaisi. Ideally, the next game, they can draw the next game, but then it will be a must-win situation for the final game. And Arjun Aragaisi has white now, so he would be realistically looking to strike back immediately. This is so important for the club championship as well, because those 500 points for Gen G could prove critical at the end of the Esports World Cup.
So important also for the team, but on a personal level, Arjun, he struggles to beat these top guys. He's fantastic at beating players lower rated than him, at getting inside their skin, at attacking them. But the likes of Magnus, the likes of Hikaru in match situations, he's yet to really do it on a consistent basis, and he wants to break through in this in his career. It felt like this might be his day the way he started, but the last 2 games, it just feels like he's running out of steam a bit. Something's just been a bit off with Arjun, just lacking the energy we're used to.
And I think one of the reasons for that, why he struggles against the very best in the world, has been also Arjun's biggest strength, his brand of chess. You know, when he brings on those attacks, those chaotic positions which require players to calculate and be precise, Arjun's awesome at that. But he finds it difficult to be a more universal player, you know, to hold, to play safe, to play maybe that, to have that cautious approach when it's needed. It's been sort of a struggle for him to kind of develop that more universal style of play. And against guys like Hikaru, you need to be playing every aspect of the game to the best of your ability.
Now, let me ask you a follow-up question to that, Tanya. Speaking of slowing things down, knowing when to hold back, are we going to see Hikaru go for the throat here and try and get the full point with black? Or is he saying, actually, I just need 2 draws, let's calm it down a bit?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, Hikaru's got so many wins with black in the last 2 days. You know, his first one against Magnus with the black pieces in the King's Indian. The only defeat that Magnus Carlsen has had here in Riyadh was that game. And for Hikaru, you know, even in this match, coming back with that victory that he did in round 3 with the black pieces. So I think if he gets that opportunity, if he gets the chance, he'll take it.
Okay.
But will he try to create those chances himself? I don't think so. I think he'll keep it as he knows that Arjun's the player who'll make it happen himself on the board.
Right.
You know, Arjun, he needs to. Arjun doesn't have an option. Hikaru doesn't need to take the fight to Arjun. It'll come to him.
So in other words, Hikaru knows that Arjun may need to take a risk, maybe needs to play one or two suboptimal moves on purpose to try and shake things up. And Hikaru, knowing that that's coming, it helps him understand where those critical positions will be. It helps him understand where he needs to slow down and think. And he will try and pounce and turn that inaccuracy, deliberate inaccuracy, I should add, into a full-blown mistake and really try to punish Arjun for it.
Exactly. That's his favorite role these days, Hikaru Nakamura. Just the counter-puncher. He just waits. He's super patient. He loves his endgames. Note how the 2 games that Hikaru won were after the queens came off. And it was only then did he press an advantage. And I think he's going to wait for that to happen again if he gets a chance to make it slower, or if Arjun goes full guns blazing at him, maybe sacrifices incorrectly, then Hikaru will wake up and try to score this full point. Hikaru would love a draw, though. Let's be honest. He would love this game. He would love to take it to Game 6 with the lead with white pieces.
100%. And I think that strategy that you're talking about, Hikaru, it works against everyone in the world.
Right.
Except a certain Magnus Carlsen. I think with Magnus, you need to create those chances yourself. You need to try to create the chaos on the board. But for Hikaru, you know what he does, this waiting game, it's perfect. And I think especially against a player like Arjun Erigaisi.
That's weird, isn't it? Chess is a game of complete information. You know exactly where your opponents and your pieces are at all times. And yet somehow some things work against some players and not others. It's part of what makes the game so beautiful. And in this situation, we have Arjun being the wilder of the 2 players and also basically needing to win on command. Nakamura will be thinking of ways to shut it down, but I'm looking forward to seeing what the potential counter-punches could be.
And in the meantime, this position, wow, pawn to f5 is very, very committal, opening up the black king somewhat, a very loosening move there. But Hikaru is fighting against this. I was going to say it's going to become very symmetrical, but white had a small advantage. Now, maybe white still has that small advantage, but anything but symmetrical. White has 3 pawns in front of his king, black has 2. Hikaru, in his attempts to shut this game down and prevent any active play, feels like he's weakened himself. A big, big shake of the head, prolonged one this time.
Yeah, it feels like no matter what you do in the middle of the board right now, that e-pawn currently on e6 is looking like a long-term target. No matter who you're playing, no matter what the position is, that is a very obvious question mark / target in the middle of the board for the white pieces to direct their attention to.
100%. That e6 pawn is weak, and if there's a d5 pawn, trade and that pawn lands there, that'll be weak there as well, with the white queen lined up against it. I think there are some practical problems for black in this position to solve. You know, if you trade the bishops on Arjun's turn, bishop takes bishop, rook takes bishop, huge weakness. Right. Easily can be taken on. And what we see right now, the trade as it's happened, after pawn takes pawn, the queen lines open up, bishop takes knight. In fact, d5 is hanging immediately. Hikaru might be forced to capture with the bishop, which means a long-term weakness, the isolated queen's pawn.
This is going to be a lot of suffering ahead from Hikaru. Maybe it's not too dramatic yet. The eval bar says nearly +1 for white. Really surprised Arjun didn't take the opportunity to open up the d-file for the white queen there. Maybe he'll get a second chance. But ultimately, it is a few things. It's the fact that black's pawns in the center are vulnerable, plus the fact that long-term, the black king slightly open. And here, Arjun with a big time advantage as well. Dream start to the game here in his quest to come back.
Maybe it's because he doesn't have to. Maybe the c-pawn can't be pushed to c4, also doesn't want to take on d4 and ruin the pawn structure, and white actually has time. There's no need to take on c5. I can take whenever I want. I'm just going to improve the position of the rest of my pieces and torture you a little while longer.
You know, one of the hardest things in chess is to keep tension on the board. It's something that I've struggled with a lot in my career as well, and I think players of all levels do. But I think these top guys, and I've seen this especially with Arjun, that if there's an option to just keep the trades as they are and not rush into it because that dynamic cannot change in the near future, he won't do it until it's absolutely forced. He will want to keep that tension, keep improving the position of his pieces. You know, get that rook out to d1, then think about capturing on c5. Meanwhile, Hikaru continues to activate some of his own pieces.
But I'm gonna, like, the counter argument to that is maybe taking a look back at game 3, Tanya. Arjun kept the tension on the board, kept things really complicated. He was pressuring from an advantageous position. And there's an argument to say that partially because of that, Hikaru seized the opportunity to turn that game around, and he ended up making it a victory.
Now, that's a great point, but you got to stick to your style, you know, because more often than not, that will work to you. And to decide when to do it, when not to do it, is the tough part about chess. The last few moves that have happened, David, the king sliding over, I think at some point that tension in the center will get released. Maybe now with the bishop sniping across.
Yeah, now might be the moment. Very committal decision there from Hikaru. He didn't want to spend time investing to calculate there too deeply. As you say, Tanya, the white bishop I'm just going to show on the same diagonal as the black king. So watch out, Hikaru Nakamura. You have to keep your eye open for tactics a bit later. But for now, everything's covered, and black in return had some counter threats on the f2 square.
A little bit less forced as well, because queen takes d5 no longer came with check, I suppose. So just trying to force the issue a little bit and relieving a bit of the tension. And we're just adding a defender now to the f2 square. And once again, that pawn continues to look like the center of attention, for good reason.
Yeah, that bishop on b2 just reminds me of the bow and arrow that Magnus was referring to yesterday in his winner's speech after taking down one falcon. The white bishop, it's like an arrow staring across the board. But for now, Hikaru has everything covered, and a bit of a trap. Queen takes pawn would be a losing blunder here. If the white queen were to capture on d5, we would see a game-ending skewer. And you cannot allow that for Arjun. Of course, greed is not good here. We'll just show it on the board. Queen takes pawn. The black rook would slide across. And whoops, you find your rook undefended at the bottom of the board. The white queen would be forced out of the way. And rook takes, rook check. Black has extra material and a deadly attack against the white king. So Hikaru here defending his isolated queen's pawn with tactics, with some tricks. And yes, this is kind of chess 101 when it comes to back rankers, but all important as you try to turn the middle game in your favor. The knight jumps forward to block instead.
You know, there are two strategies when your opponent's got the isolated queen's pawn. Either you go for a direct attack against it, which Arjun tried, cannot capture it, cannot win that pawn. And the second strategy is you block it, you use a piece square in front of that pawn, which is the strongest spot for you in the position to replace your pieces to better squares. And usually, the one that belongs there is the knight. Place that knight in front of the isolated queen's pawn. It can't be kicked back. It's the strongest position for that knight, and that's what he finds. It also comes in with a threat. Knight to e6 at the right moment. Watch out.
Yeah, and this is another big moment. Arjun, in his desperation to avoid any tactics on the D file, might have opened up some tactics on the F file. Right now, Hikaru, we saw him kind of frown for a moment. He spent a lot of time. It looks like he might be tempted to give up his knight on the f2 square. He can take with the knight or the rook. And look at this. After the black knight gives itself up, we would see some trades. The white king coming forward. And it's the black queen now able to swoop in, take on h2. The black rook is coming next move to f8. The white king lacking shelter. The black bishop pins the white knight. Suddenly we could see a full turn of momentum. Black also gets 2 pawns for this sacrificed knight. It looks like the eval bar says this is the best way to go. Still a small advantage for Arjun, but this would be a real shock. Hikaru, will he go for this variation? Huge moment. If he doesn't, he might just find himself a bit passive. This might be his chance to strike Hikaru Nakamura. What do we think? Is he going to go for it?
I mean, he's thinking so long on this, right? 4 minutes now, plays 6.5, and I get that these guys are super quick on the clock, but if this gets up to something like a 3-minute advantage, not only are we going to have to commit, if we choose not to commit, we're then just playing the game out. 6 minutes versus 3, that's going to give Arjun Erigaisi a renewed sense of confidence.
Yeah, but it's on Hikaru to make that decision, and he goes for it.
Here we go.
Knight takes pawn, it's on the board. He wants to wrap this match up here and now.
Wow, this is a 3-result game. Hikaru is going to get a ferocious attack in return for the piece he's just sacrificed. He's even got those couple of pawns we mentioned. He spent a long, long time, 2 full minutes, pondering over whether to go for this. But Arjun looking calm, the heart rate still low. Can he react? It's so scary now for white. You never want to play chess with your king out in the open like this, especially if you're the one trying to attack, if you prefer being on the front foot. I think this is inspired by Hikaru Nakamura.
Absolutely. This is taking the fight to Arjun. This is the kind of stuff that Arjun does against his opponents. Huge threat on the board. Rook f8 check. It's not just a check. That g2 pawn is tender. That's a soft pawn. Queen takes pawn would be game over if it's allowed. Arjun has to find a way to not only defend the king, but but do it in such a way that he doesn't lose his queen, because queen f3 would have run into rook f8, queen h3, offers a trade, defends that pawn. I don't believe Hikaru trades in this position. He's going to keep the queens on the board. He's going to go for Arjun's king.
No trades. White has the extra knight. Black's pawns are not so impressive right now. And, okay, it was just one check. The white king's actually trying to run away to the left half of the board. Give white 2 more moves, the white king will find safety again. So Hikaru needs to keep the queens on, needs to keep creating threats. And what do we think here? Tanya, you know Arjun so well, your teammates for India. Do you believe he's going to be able to defend this one?
I'll tell you one thing, Arjun's not going to be stressed or tensed about this position. You know, it's the kind of position which is crazy on the board, but this is where Arjun feels the calmest. This is where his nerves are absolutely chill. It's what he does for a living, are these kind of crazy, chaotic positions. But can he save this with the time on the clock? The good news, he's got the extra minutes. Hikaru continues with the checks. Arjun can use his queen to block it, offer a trade. Remember, any queen trade, great for Arjun. Game over for Hikaru. So it's pressure on Hikaru to keep the attack going. If he doesn't, Hikaru's lost.
Don't forget the clock pressure as well. It took him 3 minutes for that. The queen actually going back to h2, saying, okay, maybe the path forward isn't so clear. Are we interested maybe in doing any of this repetition stuff? But Arjun doesn't have to say yes to that.
Yep, Arjun will not be agreeing to a draw here. We're not repeating moves by sliding the white queen across to h3. He'll look for something else, look for something better. Ideas could include sliding the white king across, trying to bring that one to safety, although it does look a bit slow. You could defend that pawn with your queen, maybe even with your rook. It does feel like white has enough control for now to be able to defend.
But he needs to find a way, right? Because if you don't, it's a bit scary to face this as well, with the black queen and the rook. You know, yes, you can run with your king, but you're essentially giving black at least 3 pawns, which is more than enough compensation. So unless Arjun finds a good way to defend g2 and stop that check on e5, he might end up repeating and bail out in this position.
And here, the all-seeing engine, the computer, our silicon friend, says that this move is by far the best for white. Bring the queen to g5, and the key detail is you defend your pawn on g2, but you also attack this black pawn on d5, from where you also defend g2. This is the move we're looking for. If he finds it, Arjun, a big favorite.
Oh, he does!
It's 2 multi-purpose moves in a row. It's watching the g2 square, it's watching the e5 square, and guess what? The only other square the white queen can do that from is d5 after capturing the pawn.
You know, not just that, it was 3. Even g7 was a tender spot. Hikaru kicks the queen, he wins the pawn.
Hikaru reacted. He kind of leaned forward as if he might have missed this one. The black queen slides back, and there's a huge threat now. The black rook is trying to infiltrate on the second rank. The white king in the kill zone this time needs to run away as soon as it can.
Get it to the left side of the board. Rook f2 is a massive threat that will end in checkmate. Arjun locked in. Moves the rook, and that's a blunder. Hikaru Nakamura has a winning move right now.
Hikaru Nakamura, he needs to find the fact he can move his bishop to attack that rook. We'll just draw it with an arrow here. Bishop to b4 is a winning move that would tip white's defenses over. And no, he doesn't find it, Hikaru. Instead, he's going to trade rooks. This could be decisive now, white with an extra knight. Wow, missed opportunity. That was hidden. It's not obvious, I'm going to say, from Hikaru Nakamura. But he's chasing the white king now only towards safety.
When he had the option to give a check to make a small quiet move with the bishop taking away the escape route for the white king. Not an easy spot, but a huge miss there by Hikaru, which has now gotten, in fact, Arjun back on the winning advantage as his king runs to safety, an extra piece on the board. And once it's Arjun on the attack with that bishop on b2 and the queen on d5 combining, the knight jumping to e6, that would be game over. Hikaru has to continue giving the checks.
Look at this, the white king hiding amongst its own pieces. This is beautiful defense here. A lot of shelter for the white king. No important checks here. The only check black can give is from the queen, but that will be blocked by the white knight. Hikaru's running out of ammunition. Look at this, the eval bar slides all the way up in white's favor. Hikaru reacting. He's down at 1 minute as well. This has all gone wrong. Ice cold defense from Arjun. Such a difficult position. We can forgive the players the mistakes, but it's all about what's left on the board, and Hikaru out of threats.
And throughout this madness that happened, Arjun's heart rate did not go beyond 80. Again, it comes back to this point. These kind of positions, he's just Mr. Cool Guy. It's just so hard to get him tense, and that is it. Hikaru Nakamura resigns. Arjun Aragaisi equalizes.
Two and a half in this third place match. We are going to be going to a game number 6, and that game number 6 is all square, which means a draw in the final game, tipping Armageddon. Wow, what a topsy-turvy game that was.
Arjun ice cold in his defense there. Hikaru had his chances. He was the one who went for it. Fair play to Hikaru. He wanted to be the master of his own destiny. Ultimately, though, he missed this key move. Bishop to b4. He would have turned the tables there, would have won, might have even just banked that third place on the spot. In the end, this chase of the White King only helped Arjun, and in the final position, White with a full extra knight.
And with that, I think this match now is certainly on the stream. I don't know if it's on the Esports World Cup so far. Definitely the match with the most decisive games. We have seen some fire on the board here. Very, very decisive, very few draws. In fact, just the one, I believe, getting to this point. So incredibly strong stuff from both players, and it's fitting that this goes all the way down to game number 6.
4 punches traded in this one, 2 by each of this. I mean, this is just a firework of a match that it is. But that's what's expected when you've got players like this, right? World number 2 Hikaru Nakamura taking on world number 5 Arjun Aragaisi here. Experience versus explosiveness for Hikaru. You know, his legacy is on the line in this match. Yes, he's not fighting for championship, but it's third place. It's glory, it's pride for Team Falcons. For Arjun Aragaisi, he's writing his legacy right now. You know, it's just the beginning of his chess career at the very, very top. So this means a lot to him, playing for Genji, trying to get that third spot for his club.
He wants this to be the passing of the torch moment. And this is very, very knife-edged in game number 6. Folks, we're playing for 3 results. You know that in chess, of course. You've got a white win, a black win, and a draw. But as far as the match is concerned, as far as third place in the Esports World Cup is concerned, we are also playing for 3 results with this very game.
And Hikaru Nakamura, perhaps inspired by his opponent in this one, he tries to set up with the white pieces just how Arjun Aragaisi set up in the previous game. Also with white, we see some quick trades in the center. Hikaru still clearly reeling from the shock of that previous defeat. And big moment, Arjun decides to capture with a pawn, establishing the first imbalance. IQP, the isolated queen's pawn, the pawn on d5. Hikaru loves playing against it. But it does promise Arjun some active play with his pieces.
And this is such a knife's edge sort of a match, right? Because how much risk do you take? There's no margin for error. If things go wrong, it's match over. Do you have a safety first approach? Do you say, I want to delay, you know, that take it to the Armageddon, make sure that I have that safety net of being able to shut down the position? Or will Arjun, even with the black pieces, stick to his brand of chess?
I was trying to avoid talking about Armageddon, but I think, Tanya, you've brought it up at the perfect time, because the question we have to ask ourselves is Hikaru actually much more favored if we go to Armageddon? Is he happy for this to fizzle out?
It's difficult. They had, I think, a mixed history in Norway chess just a few months ago in the Armageddon. Hikaru, surprisingly, in Armageddon chess, doesn't have an amazing record. It's decent, but you would think for such a speed specialist that it would be much more impressive than it is. I think it's going to be pure 50-50. Hikaru, it might depend on his bid. Yesterday against Magnus went so low on the clock.
6 minutes 12, I want to say?
Yeah. Came back to haunt him.
That was a very surprising decision. And I think Hikaru said it earlier here in Riyadh, right? That the Armageddon win just depends on the decision that you make on the color that you want and if you're able to get it. Yesterday, he wanted the black pieces desperately, but went perhaps just a tad bit too low. But still, the Armageddon's a game away. And I think this game's going to be quite the one. You know, the imbalances are there. That isolated queen's pawn. And look at Hikaru's last move. That knight from h4, yes, it offers trades, but it's also headed to that f5 square. And if it's allowed to get there, then we're looking at the makings of some attacks. If black retreats with the bishop, avoiding the trade, defending that square, that gives Hikaru the possibility to jump further with his bishop targeting the d5 pawn. I don't think this is so simple for Arjun to handle.
Yeah, and the fact that Arjun has paused so much here, that the fact that he's burnt over 2 minutes is worrying. This is still well-known theory. This is still a very typical idea. The white knight going to h4. It's kind of borrowed from colors reversed, the Nimzo Indian defense, where there's an identical idea against the isolated queen's pawn. Hikaru, of course, he's familiar with it. Super experienced in these Fianchetto lines with a white bishop on b2. It's his bread and butter. He plays it day in, day out on chess.com when he's playing Blitz. The fact that Arjun hasn't prepared, the fact that he's not enjoying this position, the fact it's about to become very strategic with black the only side with a weakness all seems to favor Hikaru Nakamura. The bishop goes back. It's the bishop pair as well for white now. And Tanya's move, bishop to f3, hitting black central pawn, already looks fantastic for white.
Very, very quick to move that back, and then pre-moving, of course, recapturing. Arjun Erigaisi here, we've seen him work wonders with the knights in the middle of the board. Maybe he's not panicking over the loss of 2 bishops or anything like that, but when we see the center potentially opening up like this, we do have to ask ourselves the question, are the bishops just the more powerful piece here?
Arjun loves his knights, but again, it comes down to the position that you have. You know, this is going to be a defensive one for those knights. Usually, if you've got the knight pair, if you've got a knight versus bishop imbalance, you want the position to be closed. Knights are short-range pieces. They jump around, but they can't make that far route too quickly. So you want more pawns on the board. This one, absolutely blown open. The bishop's beautifully placed for Hikaru on the longest diagonals on the board, both of them. The light squared bishop will not be challenged and has a clear, direct target on d5. This is a dream position for the side with the bishop pair.
Exactly, dream position for Hikaru. Arjun's last move given a question mark. Maybe this is the moment that Hikaru will try to open up the center even further. He can push his e-pawn forward. Maybe another tempting option would be to move the white queen, slide the white rook from f1 over into the center. Arjun's knights very, very passive. That's the key. Whatever configuration you like, and the queen does move, it is about active pieces. Bishop's active, knight's active. That tends to be a necessity in these types of middle games. Missed opportunity, maybe it was better to open the center.
Yeah.
The red X appearing, but Hikaru's position still preferable.
Queen d2 looks very, very sensible indeed. So I was very surprised to see that red X in the corner. It must be something to do with opening the center being potentially better. Don't know.
It looked that way, and now Arjun trying to force the issue, not enjoying the position too much. He trades off dark squared bishops. At least the pair of bishops is gone. But the black queen's slightly offside for now. We'll have to burn an extra tempo going back in the near future. And again, Hikaru, his move given a question mark. I will tell audiences at home, the computer has been crying out for the move e4 over the last few turns, just to open up white's light squared bishop, but that has now been prevented.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
The rook lines up against the white queen, so no e4 for now. You know, for a long, long time in the chess world, there's been the feeling that at the start of a match or the start of a tournament is when players feel maximum nerves, maximum tension.
Sure.
Because they're still not sort of found their rhythm into the game. And I think here at the Esports World Cup in Riyadh, all of that's been confirmed by our heart rate monitors. At the start of the day, both players over 100. Crazy things happening on the board. And as the match has progressed, you know, we see them come down. Arjun reach his more usual heart rate. We've seen Hikaru go under that 100. And that just shows how you settle into the battle.
In that case, I'm glad this is the third place match. Otherwise, in 2 days' time, they're both going to be sat here with a BPM of 50, just chilling on the sunbeds while playing these, I'm sure. So d5, still a long-term target. And the rooks have piled on the C file now. I'm guessing, but I don't know. Maybe you guys can tell me. I'm looking at ways to blockade the pawn on d5 because, you know, basics of chess, if you want to play against the isolated pawn, you sort of want to maybe play a knight e2 kind of move. I'm guessing knight e4 straight away, if that happens, is preventing white from doing that.
Yeah, it looks like that would have been a very logical continuation from both sides. Instead, going the other way from Hikaru, it just feels like something's a bit off. I don't understand why he's put his rooks on the c file blockaded by the black knight, why he's put the white knight back on its starting square when it could have been going to fresher pastures. Black queen retreating. Apparently it's advantage Arjun right now, according to the eval bar. Very slight, but you can see why. Black's piece is now centralized.
When you're the side with the isolated queen spawn, you have to play for activity and attack. Now what Arjun set up, which was impossible before, is that jump that you were earlier talking about, knight e4. It's unstoppable now. With the black rook lined up against the white queen, the queen gone back to defend that knight. Knight e4 is almost a pre-move that you want. He might make it now or on the next move. But the moment that knight lands there, the other knight getting to e5, you can see the makings of some initiative in the position. A big threat, meanwhile, rook and queen lined up against the white queen. Watch out, d4 is Arjun's idea.
Yeah, d4, watch out. There might be knight d4 ideas as well in the near future. Hikaru is hating what's just happened. It was a bit of a shake of the head. He's telling himself to calm down. Look at that gesture. He's saying, you still got this. It's still roughly a level position. But white's advantage from earlier, big advantage of the bishop pair, of the better pawn structure, it has disappeared. White's knight is so badly misplaced right now, and black is ready, poised, all the black pieces centralized to blow open that center.
It does feel like we've lost maybe losing the thread a little bit. Those rooks on the C-file targeting the knight that can't be moved, like you said, David. The knight going back to B1, it's starting square instead of developing elsewhere or going to E2. It's not necessarily that any of these are bad or losing moves. It's more that we've given Arjun Aragaisi the time he needs to put his own plan together. And it's like giving him a couple of moves to get his pieces into better positions. And now it feels like it's Hikaru responding to Arjun rather than the other way around.
100%. You know, like we said, two plans against the isolated queen's pawn. You either attack it or place a piece in front of it. Hikaru has not managed to make do of any of these plans in the last 10 moves or so. While Arjun, he's made all his pieces active. Knight e4 always incoming. That g5, hinting at g4 at the right spot. And, you know, we saw Hikaru tell himself to calm down earlier. And that's something that we've seen a storyline with Hikaru throughout in Riyadh. You know, he up-talks himself. And that's been fascinating. Yeah. Forces himself, wills himself to make a move. When things go wrong, he tells himself to take it easy, that, you know, he's still got this, there's still everything to play for. I am the most resourceful player on the planet. When he's frustrated, you can see those head shakes. But the one sign to look out for every player is when Hikaru raises a finger. That's when you know that it's game over.
Even
when
better
he
than the
starts
head
twirling
bob.
his fingers, making them go round and round, telling chat, you know, I got this, that's bad news. I haven't seen that happen this game so far.
Yeah, he hasn't got it yet, Hikaru, although the last few moves have been a bit better for him. The white knight at least has developed. Black knight now hitting the white bishop. If the white bishop moved, then black would have been pushing forward in the center. Now things are getting spicy. The white knight stepping back, allowing a doubling of the white pawns. Arjun said no, he's trying to open up lines towards the white king instead. This is a race. If white gets the knight on d4, stabilizes, white has the advantage. If black gets the knights in, gets the black queen in, white king might be in danger.
Clock's looking relatively equal as well. 4 minutes 37, playing just over 5 minutes at the moment, so less of a discrepancy than the previous game. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out too.
But this from a positional battle has become very tactical, and Hikaru stops the move queen h4, which would have threatened a deadly checkmate on h2. He's very unhappy that he's had to do this. It weakens a lot of light squares around the white king. The black knight can reroute itself to that f3 square. Lot of ideas. The queen can jump onto g5 and then target the h line. Queen g5, queen h5. Also a plan. Arjun's on the attack.
Arjun on the attack. This last move given a question mark. It's not obvious what could have been better for white. It does prevent the black queen from landing on h4. White just needs 2 more moves. You need to get the white queen to a better square. You need to get the white knight into the center. But that is not easy to achieve. Okay, the black queen slides across. Black rooks could jump up as well. Use the 6th rank to lift and slide towards the white king. Arjun, he's got to nail this with an attack though, because long term, white still slightly for choice, with the isolated queen's pawn still living on this board.
If the majors come off the board, Hikaru Nakamura would be close to winning the endgame. But the endgame is a far, far way off right now. Arjun's getting ready to set up some checkmating ideas. Is he going to rush through with it? Queen h6 comes to mind right now. Also, always in the air is neutralizing that isolated queen's pawn with d4. So a break that needs to be timed well. Arjun first threatens a checkmate in 1.
That's what I was about to ask, because the knight moving away from the e2 square, there we go, means that we open up to d4. An exchange of queens is going to happen first, though, and that's going to be... I actually don't know who that's a bigger sigh of relief for, because potential checkmating attacks were there on both sides of the board, but there's still plenty of life left in this game. A pair of knights and 2 rooks per player. Lots of danger still around.
And white is the first to get to the 7th rank, where there are still a bunch of targets the white rooks can infiltrate right now. We'll learn a lot about Hikaru's mindset over the next couple of moves. If he's happy to just try and trade off a set of rooks, maybe trade off the knights, it will end in a draw. But Hikaru could still go for it. Maybe he could trade off a set of rooks in the process. He can go to the top of the board. He can go to the 7th rank. Those 2 white rooks. He's going to move one of them. And still not over. There we go. He tries to trade off black's more active rook. And when the black knight retreats, he'll land on the 7th rank. This isn't over, despite the fact the eval bar says 0.0. Despite the fact it's symmetrical, Hikaru does enjoy these positions.
It's going to be a bit of a grind right now, and especially because he's got the extra seconds. Who's happier with everything that's happened in the last few moves? You know, with Arjun neutralizing that weakness at the center of the board, if you'd asked this question 10 moves ago, it would definitely be Arjun. But the way the game was developing, you know, with Arjun creating those ideas, Hikaru not looking happy on the camera, I think he's happy to see this endgame right now. He knows he can play it on forever. It's absolutely safe for white, and I think he likes what he's gotten.
Very similar time situation to a couple of games ago, where the time advantage is roughly 45 seconds right now, which is fine in the middle game, but once we get to the end game and we start seeing the players go below 2 minutes, starts to become pretty critical. And the player with more time here, Hikaru Nakamura.
Just want to point out, Hikaru's won a pawn. You cannot defend that pawn on a6. If the black rook had come up, there would have been a check, some knight forks, and there we go. Hikaru Nakamura, a pawn to the good. That's the first step.
Pawn. Black's threatening to come in with his own rook, but notice how the knight on h3 defends f2, the rook on a6 defends a2. So sure, you can infiltrate with your rook if you're Arjun. He first stops any knight jumps on g5, creates a luft for his own king to come towards the center of the board. But you get into rook e2. That really doesn't help you because everything's defended for white.
Yep, everything held for now with white. The white rook slides across. Hikaru trying to kick the black knight out, given a question mark. If rooks disappear, it's going to be a clear win for white. The white pawns are going to be too strong on that left side, especially the white A pawn. So he needs to get rooks off, but Arjun cannot allow that.
Is the pawn given back now after knight c1? Because wherever the white rook goes, the knight can either capture a pawn, or the black rook can come in to help via e2 or a8, depending on how white responds. Is this just the pawn right back?
It does look like it. I'm very surprised Hikaru moved his rook away, as it's needed to defend anyway. Maybe he's hoping to deflect the black knight, the black rook, in order to get the white knight over to f4. He's actually going for the black b pawn instead, but this can be held. The black rook can defend that one.
You just slide it over, do a rook lift, defend your pawn, and the a2 pawn still under fire.
Oh, Hikaru reacts, just missing this last move, it appears. Giving back the advantage, the small advantage he had claimed. Okay, the pawn survives, but it won't survive much longer. It's about to get caught by the black rook, the black knight. The white knight, meanwhile, so offside.
That is the biggest problem for Hikaru right now. You know, you pick up that knight, put it somewhere in the center of the board, and Hikaru is close to winning. But that knight not coming to defend, yes, you can fall back with your rook, but then it'll be Arjun's knight that'll start chasing it around the board. I think this is about to neutralize, liquidate, and we might be getting an Armageddon sooner than we thought.
I think that looks like the most likely outcome. You can see the paths the black knight can take to try and support the pawn, not even going to go for that. We are just instantly grabbing it off the board, and now it is rook knight and 2 versus rook knight and 2. This is as equal as the position has been pretty much all game. There are still some fun things to do because white's knight is significantly more centralized, but that list of things you can do starting to dwindle by the second.
The white knight wants to land either on e6 or h5, and the black g7 pawn is the target. But ultimately, that pawn can move, can maybe be just defended. And there we go. Arjun defends the other pawn, allowing the g pawn to step forward. If the white knight moves, the black knight is out of its box. And this game fizzling towards a draw. 1.5 minutes. Do we expect Hikaru to try and hustle on time here? It's still risk-free for white, but ultimately not many resources left on the board.
I think he's going to play on for just a little bit more. You know, with Arjun 125, if Arjun takes a couple of seconds every move, that might not be ideal. And Arjun's still sort of struggling finding the right place for his rook and knight. Arjun's king feeling a little bit tied down to the white rook and knight. Something to play for. White's king has a clear path on the light squares to come forward and maybe even potentially create an attack. Hikaru there starts with a pawn move, tying down. Black's pawns there. An attack on the knight, retreats, some checks, watch out, knight e6 would win a pawn. I think Hikaru plays this on.
Yeah, Arjun's not liking this. Again, he doesn't like playing the role of defender in general, but especially when he's got no chances to win the game. And the white knight could still use some squares. The black rook currently can slide across the 5th rank, potentially to defend some stuff. But Hikaru, will he keep testing his opponent? It's a bullet game essentially for Arjun Erigaisi down at the 1 minute mark. He could well get this Hikaru. He's well within his rights to play on. It's not dead drawn yet.
All right, huge threat. The pawn on g7 about to fall. Will Arjun take a big decision? You can move it, but then you're really weakening your king and also leaving behind that f pawn. Hikaru is ready for the fight. He does target that F6 pawn, which is not easy to defend. Hikaru for the second time about to go up a pawn.
It's impossible to defend that pawn. Arjun suddenly leaned forward, panicking now. The black pieces should still be able to hold this thing together, but G5 so weak right now. There are going to be some checks. This game's going to be a long grind, and Hikaru starts with an extra 35 seconds as well. He's got the board position, he's got the clock position. This is Hikaru Nakamura's bread and butter. Is he going to get it, though? Arjun needs to get the rooks off the board. He needs to get all the pieces off before he runs out of time.
Hikaru's won thousands and thousands of such positions. Technically a draw should be an easy hold for a player of Arjun's level, but put that mix of a 40-second on the clock, both clocks gone red, it's going to be a time scramble. The only one who can come on top, but you have to watch out. There are knights for both sides. But it's Hikaru who's feeling he's playing for 2 results here.
The White King is soon going to come in. The White Knight is going to improve itself. Hikaru should not lose this. Watch out, there are Knight Forks. The King is coming. As soon as the checks dry up, the Black King might be checked backwards. Hikaru, though, can he find safety? Where's he going to hide his king? Checks continue. He's moving further and further away from the area of the board he wants to be on. But this is all about the clock. 30 seconds versus 40 seconds now.
And Hikaru's such a beast when it comes to mouse skills right now. Definitely the better of these two players with more practice, has played hundreds of thousands of such games and come out on top 99% of the time. He does keep the pressure, attacks the rook, and look at that, Arjun's taking too long. He's down to about 20 seconds.
There are so many Knight Forks in the air. Hikaru, he's so good at avoiding those Knight checks. The White King is coming. White's got the perfect setup. Black can barely move. The Knight is fixed. The Black Rook is fixed. Hikaru's going to create those threats. 17 versus 26.
And look at Hikaru's eyes. They're darting all across the board. He's fully aware of every single square. He knows he can give a check at the right time, and he will do it. But he'll wait for Arjun to go down on the clock, and that was a blunder.
That was a blunder. The White King can step across now. The Black Rook is forced to give way, and there's going to be a pin. Arjun's defenses have been tipped over the edge. Fist pump from Hikaru Nakamura. He's getting closer. He's about to win the Black Knight. This game's about to end.
Any second now, Arjun will play on, but he will not save this. And look at that beautiful finish. He wins the Rook King Pawn ending. He's going to win this 6 seconds. He could have an R. Arjun could. It will be Hikaru Nakamura who gets that 3rd place.
Hikaru Nakamura in a time scramble, doing what he does best, doing what he is famous for, what the entire world knows him to be the best in the world for. And he thrives under the pressure. He thrives under the pressure of that clock. And in the final game, takes the victory in this 3rd place match.
Well deserved in the end. Hikaru, what a roller coaster he's been on in the last 24 hours alone. He made it through to the semi-finals, got knocked down by Magnus by the narrowest of margins in an Armageddon. He had warmed up, however, and in this clash for 3rd place, 5 decisive games out of 6. Incredible. What a battle between these 2 fantastic warriors, and Hikaru Falcons coming out on top.
And look at the amount of respect shown here. There's no overriding emotion, no storming of it, nothing like that. They immediately go talk to each other about the games. They recognize what a high level, what a fantastic match that was. 5 decisive results out of 6. Honestly, really proves that this format is delivering what we want it to do. An absolutely incredible series of games.
Greatness recognizes greatness. Those 2 the world-class players, and ultimately, Tanya, it was the clock, but it is also masterful maneuvering from Hikaru Nakamura.
And beautiful mouse skill as well, right? Just the speed and the accuracy and finishing it off in style eventually with this rook check. Give it up, go into a pawn endgame, and this is easy clap for Hikaru right there. Arjun resigning, Hikaru with the fist bump showing he's the boss.
Final position, definitely easy for Nakamura, but earlier on in that game, earlier on in the match, anything but. 5 out of 6 decisive results and extremely high tension in every game. Hikaru Nakamura, though, for Team Falcons, walks away with the extra $30,000 in prize money for 3rd place. Let's go ahead and hear from him on stage right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have our 3rd place finisher in Hikaru Nakamura representing Team Falcons. I know it's not the result that you wanted. I know it's a consolation prize at the end of the day, but still, I would love to present to you the 3rd place and podium finish in the chess tournament here at EWC and your bronze key. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time, your 3rd place finisher representing Falcons, Hikaru Nakamura. Come on, make some noise. He's one of the best in the world, right here in Riyadh.
All right, Hikaru, you started these games a little bit rough in the beginning. Seems like you were kind of thinking about yesterday a little bit. You pulled it out at the end. You showed some passion. You were excited. Did these mean something to you?
I think it was a big wake-up call. I started off just really sluggish. I just wasn't there at all. I mean, I think yesterday played a role, not only because I lost, but it was a very long match. I didn't get back till midnight, so I felt tired. But when I lost the first game, I tried to get into the rhythm. But I think really the big moment was the third game when I was also losing, but I turned it around and won. And from there, I felt good, although the fifth game was, shall we say, a bit of an adventure too. And then finally in the sixth game, I got back to my roots, and I was able to run my opponent out of time. So it's a nice win. Not the way I want it, but I'll take it.
Yeah, that you will. And, you know, I want to give you this opportunity. Is there anything that you want to say to the fans that are here cheering you on, cheering Falcons on in Riyadh in the S&B Arena?
Yeah, I think it's really nice to see all the fans here. You guys made a lot of noise for me, both last night as well as today's match, and hopefully you guys can make even more noise when Alireza plays the final later, and hopefully can beat Magnus. So show a lot of love and support, and thank you once again.
Thank you once again, Hikaru. Ladies and gentlemen, we still have our grand final on the line. But first, let's head on over to the studio and prepare for the final match of the day.
Two club champions from the Esports World Cup versus the runner-up.
Suits him. Do.
Reza Farouja of Team Falcons, the reigning club champions, going up against Team Liquid's Magnus Carlsen. This is what everybody wanted to see, and it's going to be an absolutely incredible final.
This is the moment we've all been waiting for. After the El Clasico in the semis, we get the king versus the prince right here fighting for the crown.
We are here outside the SNB Esports Arena awaiting the finals, and if you can see in the background, the line to get in stretches from door to door, more than 100 people deep. We've pulled this gentleman out of line to hear why he has come here. First of all, tell us your name.
Musa Bintali.
And I understand you're not just an average fan. Who are you?
No, I'm the head of the Olympic Chess Committee, handling the chess players in Saudi Arabia.
He's head of the Olympic Chess Committee, and he still has to wait in line like the average fans do. We got to get you some special connections. But tell us, who are you rooting for, Team Liquid or Team Falcons?
Falcon, of course, but I'm enjoying the general competition.
And finally, I mean, the best chess players in the world came to your country. Hasn't happened in many years, since 2017. What's it like to have all the top players here?
Absolutely fun times. It is a fantastic opportunity for every chess lover in Saudi Arabia and the surrounding countries to come and see. It's a unique tournament. People are playing with a historical game in a futuristic manner. We all love it.
We're going to get back inside. I've been told it's hot even by Saudi standards. You don't want to lose your place. That's what the action looks like from outside SNB Esports Arena.
We have started the grand finals here at the Esports World Cup. We are deep into the first set. 1.5-1/2, the current score in favor of Magnus Carlsen, the world #1. Each set is a best of 4, the first 2 anyway, and if needed, we will have a best of 2 in a deciding set. Right now, a full point for Magnus Carlsen will clinch the first set. A draw will mean we still have to keep playing, and of course, a win for Alireza Firouzja will mean we are all square.
And there we see the heart rate monitor being adjusted. I'm sure the heart rates are through the roof. I know they are here in our caster studio.
Can they adjust mine down? That'd be great. I need maybe some an app control or something. That'd be really handy.
That would help because you need to keep your nerves in these matchups. And for Alireza Firouzja, he is a point deficit in this set 1. But it's early days, 2 games in, and I think that second game you could feel, even though Alireza was in trouble at the very end, took too much time, but at least he found the rhythm on the board. Now, he needs to just make sure he doesn't come down on the clock the way it's been. I think he's got to up his time management.
It has been a weakness of his, Alireza Firouzja's, in classical chess and rapid chess, that he does spend a bit too much time in the middle game, but just not leaving himself enough leeway in the ending. There, he escaped, but he will not escape too many times in future.
The clock looked okay up until the point in that late middle game where suddenly, over the course of just a couple of moves, it felt like Firouzja tanked, 2-3 minutes? Which is maybe fine in the first 12 moves if you have some sort of surprise. Definitely not if it results in 4v1. I mean, those are the kind of odds that you see chess players giving each other in social settings for fun when you're trying to beat a weaker player, for example. It's not the kind of thing you want to be doing at this level.
What do you guys think? The jackets are off. The gloves are definitely off in this finals. But is he going to put that back on? I think not. That usually means he's ready for a fight in this one. Alireza Firouzja is. But he'll start with the black pieces. What is going to be his game strategy in this one?
Well, it's a must-not-lose game, right? It's a kind of set point for Magnus Carlsen. If he strikes with white, he reaches the 2.5 point mark. Out of 4, that means he wins the set. And Alireza with black, he just needs to do what he did in the first game up to a point, just not blunder that rook in the corner. I wouldn't be surprised, actually, if Alireza repeats a similar opening. It was semi-successful. I would say a draw, not the worst result. Alireza will fancy his chances with white more than he will with black.
Meanwhile, Magnus not amused with the delay.
It looks like
ready to get going.
Might be a little bit of an audio issue, but it looks like, to be honest, it looks like it's doing okay and that it might be resolved very shortly. So this is game number 2. How we got to this position, it was a wild game.
It was a wild game. Magnus sacrificed a pawn early, got the bishop pair in return. We saw some early exchanges, and ultimately it was around here that Firouzja started to tank. But when the dust settled, we got to a rook endgame, even a king and pawn endgame that was temporarily winning for Magnus. In the end, though, he had to settle for a repetition, a draw. Firouzja had no time, but Magnus had no way through.
He had no way through, but he could play that position on forever, and ultimately Fallujah would have flagged. I think Magnus, he's also such a sportsman. I think somewhere he just couldn't get himself to continue in that position, knowing that on the board, there are no inroads.
Maybe it's a bit of a gambit. Magnus not trying to flag Fallujah there. If it comes down to a later game when the shoe is on the other foot, maybe he's hoping Fallujah doesn't try to flag him if it's a dead-drawn endgame.
I mean, oh, come on. We've got $250,000 and 1,000 points at the Esports World Cup Club Championship at stake here. Are we reliant on charity? Are we reliant on mercy?
Sportsmanship?
Nothing. Everything is earned, David. You're right. I can see it potentially happening. I think maybe Magnus recognized that all the pawns on the third rank meant that you could just shuffle the king. And at that point, it was like, fine. But I don't think you want to be giving away favors here.
But Magnus has done that before. When his opponent has blundered with a mouse slip and lost on the spot, he sort of returned the favor in the very next game by doing exactly the same, just to level the score and saying reset, let's go.
Let me suggest something subtly different. Magnus does that because he is so certain that he is going to win over the board. He is so certain that under normal circumstances, without the mouse slips, without the mistakes, without the flagging, he would win anyway, that he gives it back not out of mercy, out of confidence.
It's possible. It's possible. Who knows when it comes to Magnus Carlsen? Very mood dependent. In the meantime, we see the Karo Khan defense. And here, Black setting up with the Fiend Keto, White doing the same. Alireza played this queen move against Nodibek Abdusattorov. He used it just yesterday. Just the day before, even in the quarterfinals. And Magnus pausing. That shows a lack of homework, I'm going to say. Magnus should have been studying Alireza's games. The pause here surprising.
The first think there by Magnus after the queen move. And I think what he wants to do now is think about expanding, not in the center, because if you push the D pawn, you're opening up Alireza's sniper on G7. But he wanted to go B4 next, which now has been stopped by Alireza with that last move A5, so not allowing. And I was thinking this is not going to happen, but Magnus says game on, D4 on the board. This is going to be maximum tension, a 4-pawn stare-off.
If you're not going to let me play B4, then fine, let's do this anyway. I wonder how this is going to end up for the players.
Yeah, a lot of choice now for Alireza. He can resolve the tension immediately. He can capture one of White's central pawns, or he can wait, maybe develop the knight that hasn't yet entered the action. Either way, Alireza now has been surprised. Magnus with the jacket off, meaning business. Maybe he had studied this before. Maybe just that pause was to recollect things, to lull Fallujah into that false sense of security. We do see a trade. Magnus takes back with his knight, not giving himself the big pawn center, maybe reluctant to get isolated pawns there. But now it looks like the whole center will liquidate. It's going to be symmetry a bit later on. And it's going to be about who can profit from that scenario.
And so many knight jumps once that pawn trade at the center of the board happens, because pawn takes pawn will definitely be met by the knight recapturing.
Right.
Alireza isn't going to give a weakness at the center of the board. We can expect then Magnus's knight to jump at the center, or will he just do Magnus things? One move that Magnus loves to play is pushing the h-pawn forward. Whether he's castled the king or not, h4 always on the cards. Modern chess, when in doubt, play h4.
Yeah, what do you foresee? Is it going to happen? Is Magnus going to resolve the central tension or play on the wings?
Big question. Does he want to keep the tension right now or add to it?
I don't mind if it's Magnus or anybody else. I just want to see h4 on the board. So I'm very, very keen.
I'll say one thing though, John. If h4 happens, I think Alireza stops the advance. You really don't want that pawn to go all alpha 0. In this case, alpha Magnus on you with h5 coming in and then a potential h6.
Sure. Yeah, exactly. I think the logical response to h4 is h5, admittedly. And then from that point onwards, it's a little bit harder to get super excited about it, because the follow-up to build that kingside attack, especially with the bishops pointing at the queen side, might be a little bit more difficult. But h4 certainly worth a try.
Yeah, so no wing play against the Falcon yet. Instead, it's some knight action as we see Magnus the first to blink. He trades off a bishop for knight. A very controversial decision, I'm going to say, because he's parted with his beautiful light squared bishop. The white king, a bit airy on those light squares, but Magnus laughing, smiling again, looking very, very happy with his position. He gained a tempo against the black queen, which is forced home, but now the white knight on c4 is hit and needs to decide. Magnus seems in very good spirits. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing for Fallujah.
Usually that's a bad thing. You know, Magnus is the strongest player on the planet any day, but when he comes in a good mood, he's enjoying his chess. He knows he's up in the match already, feeling the floor in his position. Now, he's taking a decision. Does he go aggressive with his knight d6, or is he going to have a more cautious approach? Just come back to the center of the board. Knight to e3 was what I was going to suggest. And then I just realized that knight e3 is probably the one square you don't want to move it to. That bishop on f4 would have been trapped, but look at that.
Oh, hello.
Magnus Carlsen inviting a lot of complications. Bishop d6.
Yep, that's a double attack. It is a fork on the black rook and the black knight. Magnus now looking up to the skies. He's pretty much forced Firouzja here to take his knight. The white bishop's going to take the black knight. Taking the rook would have led to a material deficit for Magnus, 2 pieces against a rook. So now it's level material, but the black rook can save itself. Don't know why Firouzja's pausing here. Rook to e8 is the most logical move in the position, and he's playing against the bishop pair, Magnus.
And that's the surprising part, right? He's also helped Firouzja get rid of that problem in the center, the pawn that was there, and now after all these trades, it's going to be Firouzja getting his bishop to h3 with even potential checkmating ideas. The kiss of death on g2 if the queen and the bishop can line up against that white king. This is going to be Magnus on the defense for a long time.
The weaknesses on the light squares, you're right. The fact that that king feels just a little bit airy means that in the long run, this doesn't feel comfortable. It's not necessarily hugely advantageous or anything like that, but certainly a situation where you might have to defend for a little while before you can spot your opportunity. So it'll be interesting to see how they choose to respond to this.
And Falcons are here is what we saw on the screen. You know, Hikaru Nakamura already getting the 3rd place for Falcons. Alireza Firouzja fighting for the crown right now. They're definitely here. They've arrived.
Yeah, I saw some of Magnus's liquid teammates as well in the arena. It feels like everyone is out in full support today for this grand final. This is, again, just the beginning, just set 1, but still plenty of action ahead. The white queen comes out. I was going to at least suggest that Magnus tries to get the queens off the board as soon as possible to avoid any checkmating ideas. Magnus doesn't look happy in the meantime, reacting somewhat there. Position still in the balance, despite the fact black does have those hugely potentialed bishops.
You know, I think it comes down to that sequence of moves that just happened with the trades of the knight at the center of the board. Magnus kind of with a smile putting the bishop forward. But at the end of it all, when the dust is settled, Magnus realizes that this is not what he was aiming for. You know, as you evaluate this position, and look at that, we were talking about h4, it's Alireza on the attack. Magnus has to stop it. He does, but it further creates those light square weaknesses. Now the bishop can plant itself on g4.
There are some developmental questions to ask as well, because you want to really get the light squared bishop off its starting square for black at some point. You can't move the b pawn, you can't play b6 because the queen would take the rook on a8. Please, not for the 2nd time in this match. But you move that, and then where are you going? Do we get the queen out first? Oh, unfortunately, the rook on e8 would then get taken. You want to move the bishop out instead to e6 or f5? Well, guess what? The knight's there to gobble it up. It's actually not super clear how Firouzja completes development and continues on this game, even though his position looks comfortable right now.
Yeah, he's going to have to calculate. He's going to have to be very concrete about his mode of development here, Alireza Firouzja. One idea would be to bring the bishop out, as Tanya mentioned, and if the white queen captures a pawn, then on the b7 square, the black rook will slide across with some action of its own on the b file. It's a long sequence going through his mind, Alireza Firouzja. He's trying to prove here that the bishop pair is the superior piece configuration, but it's not going to be easy at all. And let's just show that on the board for everyone at home. Bishop to g4 is the move he wants to play. He actually plays his rook out, which is very surprising, but bishop to g4 would have allowed the queen to capture a pawn and the rook to slide across. And next move, when the queen retreats, rook takes pawn on b2, after maybe a rook trade, and this would have led to some big complications. But maybe we go back to the game, because this was something he wanted to avoid. The bishop would have had to retreat. Instead, Magnus desperately trying to offer a trade of queens. So we saw 2 different types of positions there. Firouzja choosing not to set the border light. He's going more positional. Maybe now forced to trade if he's not going to drop the c4 pawn.
And I don't think it matters if Alireza has a clear sequence of moves that gives him advantage. He just needs to keep this imbalance of the bishop pair. He needs to make sure that as many pieces as can remain on the board. And this is the kind of position where he needs to bring Magnus to that bullet territory. that's when his odds would increase. While saying that, he first gets the queens off, now puts the bishop on g4, hits the knight, aiming with that rook lift to activate it further. But even in this endgame, I think that's his plan. Just bring Magnus down on the clock. He's got something to play for here.
He was trying endlessly to avoid playing the Magnus-style game, moving the queen away in the last game when the queen trade was offered. This time around, he's saying, look, relatively equal on the clock. Let's actually get the queens off the board and see what we can do.
Ooh, and he brings his rook up. He's actually aiming to shuffle that rook across to the b5 square and go for white's queenside pawns once the bishop saves itself. Very, very sneaky from Alireza. That is a bit of a genius move, I'm going to say, because he's actually allowing what looks like a desirable bishop trade for Magnus Carlsen. The bishop could have gone to d4, and the black rook sliding across would now have been super effective. Let's say a bishop trade happens, and you cannot defend your b-pawn since the black bishop drops back and hits the white rook on b1. The pawn on b2 would have dropped next move. So Magnus Carlsen instead forced onto the defensive. The white bishop has been sidelined. Tanya, this just looks grim for white, although maybe with the rook trade he's going to hold it now.
You know, the bar says this position's level, and I think the rook trade, it will happen because you really want to put your rook on f5. You're not only putting it on this really weird square, but also taking away the escape route of your own bishop. But after rook takes rook, the big question is how much does Alireza believe in his chances, and does he play on this position? Very close to a Magnus hold this one. And I think that would be a relief for Magnus.
One word, fortress. He might have no way to break through Alireza Firouzja, just like he made that fortress for Magnus last game.
It might be the case where Magnus would start believing in fortresses himself. The rooks come off, bishop to b1. That's the idea that I would be concerned about. That a2 pawn, how are you defending it?
Not sure, actually, at the moment. And it takes two tempi as well to move that pawn too. So I wonder what's going to happen here and whether that is simply the line. Is there maybe a counter punch somewhere that that white can do? Or is this one of those situations where even if we have a pawn in balance and we go a pawn up, it's not enough to convert?
I'm pretty sure Magnus has missed this, by the way. I don't think he's seen this idea. We haven't seen a reaction on the camera from him yet. I think he's trying to keep a poker face, but if that move lands, Magnus is going to have to scramble to try and hold equality. Eval bar still says 0.0, but not obvious how white holds that one.
That would be Alireza returning the favor from game one. It was the b8 square the knight landed on in game over. But for some reason, Alireza decides to keep the balance, doesn't put his bishop on b1, but it's a threat that you need to watch out for. Magnus's knight gets active, stopped that check on e7. Alireza brings his king forward. David, this is not as simple as it looks for white.
This is horrible for white. It's a 2-result game for everyone at home who might be wondering what that means. It means black should be out of danger. It's going to be either a win for black if Magnus is unable to defend, or a draw if he can build a fortress. Very minimal chances that white wins this one.
Now, let's see to what extent the clock is going to play a role in this game as well. Magnus Carlsen, 4 minutes 40, playing just under 3 minutes for Alireza Firouzja. You know what? He had 4 versus 1 in the previous game. So, frankly, this is already a little bit better, but he needs to not go in the tank now.
And Alireza can start dominating that knight that has jumped too far away with no squares to return. And look at that bishop on e4, the black king heading towards the center of the board, combining all these ideas. The only thing, he needs to move fast, Alireza does, for a real shot at winning and equalizing this match.
2.5 minutes, he's got to speed up. The heart rate has been rising for Alireza. He needs to, I was going to say, bring the king across, dominate that knight. He was scared of the white pawn stepping forward to the a4 square, given a question mark, but now Magnus has a small window of opportunity. He needs to get his knight out of the black camp as quickly as he can. That move hits the black bishop in the process. Magnus should be saving himself and escaping, but he has to evacuate that piece. There we go. First step, now he'll move the white bishop out the way, and the white knight returns to safety.
That was a big moment, you know, to have tried to trap that knight, those sequence of moves. Again, it comes down to clock because Alireza is also trying to play fast. And that is when these inaccuracies happen. He does retreat with the bishop and it's still level, but white's the one who's suffering in this position.
We need Firouzja to hit that god mode. We need him to start calculating with immense speed and trusting his instincts maybe a little bit more and absolutely going for it so that he doesn't end up in a situation where he risks making a critical mistake with under a minute left on the clock. We need to see that from him now so that that isn't a possibility later.
You know what he's done with this bishop maneuver is to get that critical move going, and I think at some point g5 is the break that Alireza is hoping for. That pawn on the right side of the board moves forward, and then we might see Magnus stuck with the weakness of the g3 pawn. But he has to time it well, and time is a luxury that Alireza does not have.
To go for it. Pawn to g5. He needs to actually accelerate the play. He's being very, very patient, Firouzja, and normally I never fault that. It's a great skill in chess, but you can't be patient with 2 minutes on your clock. You need a clear path forward, and there we go. Pawn to g5. Has he timed it correctly? He's going for it, but he's allowed Magnus to drop back with a knight, attacking a bunch of things, attacking Black's dark square bishop and those pawns that have advanced. Firouzja shaking his head. He might have just let Magnus off the hook.
And it was all about making this move at the right time. And he didn't. Knight e4, Firouzja is about to lose his bishop advantage. To keep it, he has to now trade on f4, fall back with his own bishop just to make sure that the game keeps going. But that leaves him with a big weakness on h5. The white knight can start targeting that pawn.
Magnus locks up the king side. The knight move is coming. Knight to g3. Firouzja has to be careful here. He needs to pull the break here and now. 1.5 minutes. He's no longer better.
But how do you even do that? If you try to get rid of that knight, it's heading to g3 to pick up that h5 pawn. Knight g3, and I think what he wants is bishop to d7 to win that f5 pawn in return. This is what Firouzja has set up. Magnus Carlsen, is he sensing his opportunity right now?
This is Firouzja's plan. Magnus sees it and is looking for a way forward. Ultimately, the eval bar says 0.0. It looks like both sides have a way towards a draw, but again, how hard is Magnus going to press on the clock? He moves his bishop out the way. White knight, okay, could have gone back there. Instead, the king defends the pawn. Black's dark square bishop can't really move, can't really get around.
And that's what Magnus did with his bishop move, right? He took away all the squares that Alireza's dark squared bishop had to give a check to that white king. Can't go to d8, can't go to d6. Alireza comes back with his own bishop. Magnus can repeat. Magnus can bring his king back right now if he wants to stop the game.
He's got that option. Will he choose to exercise it? 2 minutes 40, plays a minute 04. I think he'll probably play on a little bit, but is there a... I'm looking for a second avenue of attack. It really does look like everything is hinging on whether an attack against the h5 pawn can be repelled.
And he just cannot let the black dark squared bishop in, Magnus Carlsen. He's trying to make sure that he doesn't allow any counterplay. He retreats his king. This is the second time we've seen that position. Oh, Alireza goes for the win this time. He could have forced a draw instantly by bringing his bishop back. He actually goes around. He's trying to check the white king. That is potentially very dangerous. The black bishop not only will check the white king, but it's going to go behind and start snacking on the base of white's queenside pawn chain. Magnus here, he's the one who has to pull the brakes this time. This is a very scary threat he's facing.
That is huge. If Magnus allows that, the whole house collapses on the left side of the board. He's going for a counterattack of his own, attacking h5. This has suddenly become a 3-result endgame.
Wow, he's let the black bishop in. This is really brave. Is it going to be foolhardy for Magnus Carlsen? The bishop gets in. Look at the eval bar. It's dropping. It's in black's favor. Alireza's got in. Magnus is trying to shut the door with his own bishop. But is it going to be enough?
That is the big question. He's defended one pawn. Can he defend the other pawn? Magnus Carlsen retreats the knight to do just that. Alireza has to activate the other bishop, gives a check to Magnus's king, falls back, 43 seconds on the clock. A minute deficit for Alireza, but Alireza is the one who's playing for a win.
Oh, I don't know. That black dark square bishop on b2 is trapped. He holds the white king away from moving towards it for now, but Alireza, he's playing without a piece. That black dark square bishop on b2 could potentially be doomed. Magnus can just sit now. Black has no winning plan. Magnus has built a fortress. 28 seconds for Firouzja. Will we see a repeat of what just happened in game 2? The players starting to move their pieces back and forth.
Or will this time Magnus Carlsen try to flag Alireza with the bishop trapped? And there Magnus, he's repeating again. He doesn't want to play on.
Eval bar says Magnus actually has an advantage, but he doesn't realize it. And we see a draw by repetition for the second time in this first set.
Game number 3 ends peacefully but reluctantly. Magnus Carlsen now takes a 2-1 lead into the final regulation game of this first set. A draw is all he needs now to take the first set of the grand finals.
That is crazy what just happened. It looked like Alireza was back in the game, in that end game. That inaccuracy by Magnus, a slight head shake as Alireza realizes his missed opportunity there. But Magnus not continuing, not playing on for the second time in the match. There's conspiracy theory here, but I think Magnus wants to get it done only on the board.
Yeah, Magnus, he's only got half an eye, if that, on the clock so far. He has been quicker than Farouja. I think maybe he's watching his own clock more, but he hasn't been trying to win by flag. As we see on the top right of your screens there, super high accuracy this game from both players. Very high quality chess, 94, 95% accuracy from both. Ultimately, Magnus built a fortress, he held it, but it wasn't easy.
So game number 4 coming up, and this is a must-win situation for Alireza Farouja. If we want to take set number 1 to Armageddon, he now has to win on command. He has got the white pieces, so if ever there was a time to do it, it is now, but no second chances.
And he needs to take inspiration from his Falcons teammate Tanya Hikaru, who struck back twice against Magnus.
And what a match that was. He needs to do just that. Not look too far away, but soar pretty high in the sky. With the white pieces, Alireza Farouja, will he go for the attack that he did in game 2? Will we see another king spawn opening? The 2 knights defense. Will the knight move forward early on? Alireza trying to figure all that out. What will be his opening approach against the world number 1? Looking for a must-win here is Alireza.
Nice images there. Some Magnus fans in the arena. It's not just the Falcons represented.
Absolutely not. With the keys in the background as well, they want to see their man put the key into the trophy, grab that 1,000 points for the club championship. We'll see if he can take a concrete first step towards doing that now. This has the potential to be the last game of the first set. Will Carlsen get it over the line?
And Magnus switches it up, not allowing Alireza with a knight jump to g5. The earlier game where Magnus had first developed with his own knight, this time starts with the bishop, so taking away that possibility, making it a slower game.
Yes, it's a slow version of the Italian game, the Gyokyo piano, as they sometimes call it. White pawn pushes on the queen side. He was trying to trap black's dark squared bishop. Magnus says no. He's created a nice hiding spot for it. But this is actually something we saw earlier in the event, in the clash between Wei Yi and here, for example, if white tries to continue munching on pawns, we would see a cool tactic after a knight trade. And the rook recapturing bishop takes f2. Watch out for this one, everyone at home. Always look for checks and captures. The king retaking would allow a queen check, a double attack, hitting the king, winning the rook on the next move. And Alireza, of course, he dodges that and instead develops his bishop. So watch out for that tactic to persist. Black's sniper on a7, still looking very, very strong. Tanya, it feels like Magnus should be relatively happy with the outcome here.
With the black pieces again, right? You get a successful d5 against the Spanish or against the Italian. You are a happy camper. Magnus's knight on d5, now the pawn on e5 defended. And that bishop on a7 is beautifully placed. Always targeting the f2 pawn. Queen headed to f6 at the right point. The black knight can jump over to f4 or h4. I think this is a very, very pleasant opening outcome for Magnus. And for Alireza, he can't be pleased with what's just happened. Yes, he's got space on the queen side, but what's next?
He's going back to basics, Alireza. I've been watching his game since he burst onto the scene, even before he was a teenager, and he's been playing the Italian game, game in, game out. He went away from it for a few years, but he's back to his favorite opening. That shows he believes that his nature, his style can hit Magnus Carlsen.
I'm a little worried, though, because maybe he'll be able to hit against Magnus Carlsen over the board. Unfortunately, he's very close to getting into a 3-minute deficit. And okay, it's 9 versus 6 rather than 4 versus 1. So I don't want to overhype the moment, but if Magnus recognizes this opportunity and continues to play quickly, he now has an excellent way of piling an enormous amount of pressure on Farouja. In a game, don't forget, he must win.
Yeah, and there's so much more to chess. Of course, it's about good moves, but sometimes if you know that you spend a lot of time in the middle game, often choosing openings where you can land 20 quick moves and kind of clarify half the board, that just saves you a bit of time, puts it in the bank for later. Alireza, though, he loves maximum tension. He loves using maximum time and getting down to that adrenaline-packed last few minutes.
I think it's time to get concerned about Alireza's clock right now. You know, it's early days in the game, but there are a lot of pieces. Nothing's been traded off. Only a set of pawns right now. So a lot of critical positions, decisions do lie ahead here. And it also shows the confidence and the style of the position, the nature of the game that is as right now. For Magnus, I think it just suits him. It's easy play, pieces are developed, no big weaknesses. Alireza, where are those complications? Where is that chaos that he thrives in? It's still a far way off. And the problem is, when and if that does happen, he will not have enough time.
Also, let's be honest, happening, the going down on the clock and really struggling under pressure, okay, can be a bit of a coincidence once, but multiple times it's becoming a little bit of a pattern, and it's something that Alireza needs to psychologically break out of. Otherwise, Magnus will continue doing this and using it as a weapon against him all throughout the grand final. If this is what Magnus has to do to win $250,000 and first place at the Esports World Cup, he will absolutely keep doing it. He's got no reason to change anything up.
Yeah, Magnus, if it comes down to flagging, he's avoided that option twice now in games 2 and 3. But if it comes down to the final game, the final Armageddon, a flag is the only thing between him and first prize for Team Liquid. Magnus is going to do it.
Oh, yeah.
Also, I think if at any moment Magnus is behind in a set, he definitely does it. He goes on to play that position 100 out of 100 times, which he did. I mean, there's so much history between these two players, and somewhere, with Magnus's mindset, how he approaches this new generation, the challenge that he truly relishes, playing against Alireza, against Gukesh, Nodebek. Somewhere you get what he's doing. He wants to try to prove his domination with the moves on the board. He wants chess to speak for itself. And the clock, sure, it's a factor, but right now he doesn't, perhaps thinks, that he doesn't need it. I mean, this storyline goes back. Meanwhile, a move on the board. Alireza does attack Magnus's knight. It moves forward. This is starting to get a little tricky for White.
And we glimpsed Alireza's screen a moment ago. He just pushed his c-pawn forward 1 square, but his mouse was still hovering over this pawn. It looked like he was getting ready to push it yet again in order to block in Black's dart squared bishop. We talked about that sniper, some tricks in the air. It looked like he was going to play that, but again, not trusting his instincts. His mouse was ready to make that move, pushing the pawn forward to the c5 square, but he's paused and, okay, changing his mind now. He first takes the Black Knight, which will be replaced by a pawn, or maybe the other Black Knight, barring a sacrifice of the e5 pawn. And Alireza, the clock time, 4.5 minutes down. Something's just off with the pace. He needs to speed up, as well as try to land a blow on the board.
He's so good when his clock runs down, but again, not when he allows his opponent such a big advantage on the clock. We choose to recapture here with the Knight.
And yet another pawn sacrifice, the second time Magnus has offered up this pawn in the center on e5. Again, it feels poisoned, taking the bait like that, especially with a knight near your king, especially with the Black dart square bishop poised, feels wrong. I think in the center there, Black's rook would open up, Black's light squared bishop would have jumped out the way, and it would have been disaster. So ultimately, he does play this idea that he was hinting at with his mouse over there on c5. And Black's bishop on a7, not too happy. I do like this last move from Firouzja. He's asking Magnus some questions.
So c5 here has the potential to completely lock out that long diagonal for the bishop. If you really wanted to lock it down, which I don't think he needs to at this time, you could even push a5 to drive the point home. The light squared bishop on a great square, which is probably why it instantly gets traded off. And yeah, Magnus not particularly happy with the lack of scope for the dark squared bishop in the long run. Why not lash out at this straight away?
This is getting fun now because there's a lot of tension on that left flank, but also big knight jumps on that right side as well of the board. The white knight also heading to f5, but I like this approach by Magnus. He's targeting the base of that mini pawn chain to try to activate his bishop on a7. The one move you definitely don't want to make is pawn takes pawn. You double up the a pawns, you allow the bishop to slide over, pick up the c5 pawn, and come under a lot of pressure on the a file. And it's under these pressure moments that mistakes happen. And for Alireza, an inaccuracy on the board. He tries to complicate matter under 3 minutes. d4. And a lot of tension there. Which pawn is Magnus going to pick up?
Yeah, probably this pawn that's just pushed, given a question mark. I just want to mention, Magnus has not spent over 30 seconds for a single move so far in this game. That one he spends 22 seconds on. He opens up the lines of the rooks. One set of rooks leave the board. I don't really see what Alireza has in mind, though. That whole left flank is exploding. The pawn chain has been eroded. Black's bishop, it's only a matter of time before it gets back into the game, and it's going to come back with full force. The clock situation and board as well against Firouzja.
The only explanation for this trade that he allowed and is allowing further on is that he did the rook lift, trying to line up the queen and the rook against Magnus's only semi-weakness, which is going to be the b7 pawn once the trades on b4 happen. Pawn takes pawn, rook takes pawn, trying to get to that, but that weakness is easily defendable by Magnus's rook sliding over.
And these moves that you see right now, for example, forcing the knight away, if the knight goes to e6, for example, it's a very natural move because once the pawn on b4 drops, the knight on e6 is naturally attacking the pawn on c5 together with the bishop. So this is playing into Magnus Carlsen's plan. It's making his moves a little bit more natural to make, which is not good when you have less than half the time of your opponent.
Yeah, those two white pawns are about to drop off. He's hoping here for Ruja to create some counterplay with his own knights, I guess. The white rook and white queen quite active. Magnus frowning. This is Magnus's longest think of the game so far. He knows that he has the advantage, a draw enough as well. And sometimes that's a situation you don't necessarily want to be in, where you're caught in two minds. Do you press an advantage, or do you just try to shore up the defenses? Magnus, meanwhile, what is the most risk-free move? I think that's what he's asking himself.
And that's the thing, like, Alireza is in a must-win game right now. It's a dead man's draw for him. It's as good as losing. So he needs to, even if he doesn't want to, create these dynamics on the board, even if that means objectively he'll end up in a worse position. He's ready to sacrifice material to get that piece activity, whether it's a knight planted on d6 or the open b line for his rook or queen. Alireza wants a fight, and Magnus ticking down on the clock.
I think almost breathing a sigh of relief that Magnus is taking so long, trying to work out how it's possible to maybe put the result of this game beyond doubt. It's also giving Alireza plenty of time to think. You can see he's not hunching his shoulders quite as much as before. He's been able to use Magnus's time to hopefully calculate some of the moves that he's going to play too. I'm not sure it's enough to get him to play nice and freely, but you have noticed a slight change in his demeanor over the last 30 seconds or so.
Definitely, and there we go. Magnus doesn't play the best move according to the eval bar. Question mark appears, but he's trying to play safety first chess. We cannot blame him for that, and there we go. Alireza knows a rook trade would guide this game closer to a draw. That's not enough, so he has to gamble. He has to speculate here. He keeps the rooks on.
But crucially, he did it instantaneously.
He's going to have to do that for a bunch more moves.
Big tension on the clock and the board. Rook e4, this does allow Magnus to again trade on b4 if he so wants. Magnus, he slows down, he does take. After rook takes pawn, that rook on d8 can slide one step forward and defend that b7 pawn. And still the attack on Alireza's weakness on c5 continues.
Alireza, he played the previous move instantly. He's gone back into the tank here. About 15-20 seconds invested and counting. Problem is that black bishop is so close now to breaking its way back into the game. The black knight coming back. The white knight's so far unable to get in.
You know, if you have to beat Magnus Carlsen, then you need to make the most of every single aspect and element of the game. You have to be up on the clock. You have to play the opening perfectly. Middle game, try to complicate things. End game, technique on point. And so far, the biggest problem in this match for Alireza has been the clock. Because in those final moments, we've seen the blunders happen.
It's beginning to look like the way to beat Alireza in this grand final is to give him choice. Because that is what Magnus Carlsen is using against him right now. I'm going to give you choices where you're trying to calculate when maybe the position and your clock certainly is calling for you to use your intuition a little bit more. Otherwise, you risk making mistakes in another minute. And it seems like 10 times out of 10, Alireza is choosing to hard calculate instead of trusting his intuition, which is odd because his intuition is so good. That's the reason why he is such a beast when his time gets low.
Exactly, Mr. Intuition, and right now Magnus has won a pawn. The black bishop is out. Most importantly, if the white rook goes to the top of the board with a check, the black bishop can drop back and block. That doesn't look super healthy for Magnus, but it's only temporary, and the black bishop is going to save the day. Alireza struggling to find any attacking resources, any follow-up to that check.
And this is concerning, right? You make a move, you give up a pawn, your opponent takes the bait, and then you again go into a tank, make a move that you're not super happy with, and it turns out to be a blunder. Alireza coming in with a double attack, but there are checks that he needs to be careful about.
He's taking massive risk here. There are two checks that are very tempting for Magnus Carlsen. The Black Rook now able to infiltrate on the first rank. Magnus leaned back. I think he spotted something. The Black Bishop can maybe even jump in and sacrifice itself. Something similar to what we showed earlier. Alireza smiling. He knows he's blundered. He spotted the refutation. Black has multiple winning moves here.
And Magnus starts with a flashy bishop takes pawn check on the board, and if this is captured, the knight will jump in with a check, forcing white's king to disconnect with the knight on g3. Knight d3 coming in, queen takes, knight coming in. Alireza cannot believe it. He is the master of tactics, but he's the one on the receiving end of this one. Magnus, super sharp today.
He's under 1 minute. He's got only a few seconds left. And look at this, walking forward with his king. He's now down 2 pawns, but this white king is simply not going to survive. The black king, in the meantime, protected by its army. The pawn will block now. And Magnus's queen can even block, and this one is going to be over. Magnus will surely not let Firouzja back off the hook there, and there we go. It's actually checkmate to end this game.
Checkmate on the board, and it started with bishop takes f2. At 3.5 minutes, plays 1. Magnus Carlsen takes the full point, and with that, the first set in this grand final. Advantage, Team Liquid.
Magnus Carlsen is crashing in on the Falcons. He's drowning the competition here. I mean, unbelievable what he's done in set 1. You know, wins in game 1, wins in game 4. The middle 2 games he could have pushed to flag Alireza, doesn't do it, and this was the brilliant move. Bishop takes pawn, the start of the end.
Yeah, beautiful awareness, tactical alertness. Magnus showing off his different gears there. He was in defensive control mode for so long. Suddenly, given an opportunity, he landed a blow, won 2 pawns, and unexpected to Firouzja, unexpected to me here in the commentary booth, he landed a checkmate even to end this game. Ruthless from the world number 1.
So it is 3-1 in set number 1. And that means that Magnus Carlsen takes that home now. We should point out, if Firouzja is able to take set 2, it doesn't matter what the scoreline is. It could be 2.5 a half, it could be 2-all, and he wins on Armageddon. It doesn't matter, they would be 1 set all, okay? So that has got to be the goal for Firouzja right now. He needs to forget about what just happened and focus all of his energy on winning that second set. Let's go ahead and head back to the studio to break it down and see what Alireza has to do to come back.
Thank you so much, Caster. Set 1 is all Magnus Carlsen as he takes down Alireza Firouzja in 3-1 fashion. I'll remind everybody that Alireza joined or entered the day with not a single lost game in this tournament. Magnus, he hands him 2. One of those coming with an actual checkmate on the board, Maurice.
That is rare to see a top player actually hang mate in 1, but he was already busted in that position. And let me tell you, this was pure dominance by Magnus Carlsen. Game 1, clearly him. Game 2, he could have dirty flagged his opponent, and game 3 as well, as he was way up on the clock. He could have just made a bunch of moves, and Alireza would not have been able to keep up. But Magnus, all class, decided, I'm not going to win like that. Let me show you how I'm going to win. I'm going to mate you on the board.
Yeah, it's not over just yet. There's still at least one more best of 4 set coming our way where Alireza can try to equalize. But Van Feingold, we have got to talk about this Magnus Carlsen. He said yesterday in the post-game interview, I'm readying my bow. I've got more arrows in the quiver, and I'm ready to take down another Falcon. So far, he's living up to that.
Yeah, this is by far the best that Magnus has played in this event. He saved the best for last, which he often does, making my prediction look silly as usual. I guess the ladies were right, and once again, Magnus wins.
It's that game 1. You give Magnus 1 single chance. He takes it 1-0 decisive fashion. But it's that second game for me, Maurice, that it goes exactly to the point you're making. Where Magnus, you can call it cocky, you can call it confident, you can call it classy. Any way you slice it, he is making a statement by not going for the flag against Alireza Firouzja.
I've seen it happen multiple times. I've been doing commentary on Magnus now for over a decade. And you see how sportsmanlike he is. He wants to beat you on the board. He's been known to play a match online and his opponent actually disconnects for some reason, and when the opponent comes back, Magnus tosses the next game, just resigns. So that's not how he wants to win. And so he doesn't want to win here by actually dirty flagging anybody. He's like, you know what? Technically, that's a draw. I'll give it to you. Next game, he could have done the same thing. Technically, it's a draw because I'm just better than you. And that's got to be inside of Alireza's head, because I tell you, if the shoe was on the other foot, Alireza would have very nicely said, hey, we got to play on the clock. It's part of the game. It just shows that Magnus is super confident alongside the fact that he's an ambassador of our sport.
Any other player takes those flags and nobody would have blamed them for it, because there's a lot on the line here. But I gotta say, Ben, right now we have not seen the stonewall on the board, but it kind of feels like Alireza is playing into a stonewall named Magnus Carlsen.
That's right, and you're not talking about the opening called the Stonewall, because nobody's playing that here. Yeah, Magnus showed why he's Magnus, and Alireza has to really amp up his game if he wants to make this a contest.
Okay, talk to me about what that looks like then, amping up his game. It's another best of 4. You've got a little bit of time to rest and retool towards it, but you now have to win this best of 4 to even force the next best of 2. So what do you want to see Alireza do here?
I want to see Alireza play faster in the opening, faster in the middle game, put more pressure on Magnus. He's way behind on the clock in every game. That's not a recipe for success.
Every single person here and every single person around the world wants to see this go the distance, Maurice, but that means we're asking a lot of a young guy in Alireza Firouzja right now who just went down 3-1. What do you want to see?
Well, he has to take a page out of Hikaru Nakamura's book. Forget these solid openings, positional play, nuanced style. That ain't working against Magnus Carlsen. This is what Magnus wants. He plays control chess. What Magnus, if there's any weakness in his illustrious game, is when chaos is on the board. And Hikaru Nakamura showed that. If you can muck it up a little bit, you might have to play an inferior opening line that has tactical chances, but maybe you're at a deficit to start. That's what Hikaru did with the King's Indian. That's what he's going to have to do, Alireza, in order to maybe throw Magnus off kilter, as Magnus loves it when it's just him and we are just driving down the road or strolling through the park and I'm going to kick your ass. That's what's going to happen.
So that's Alireza trying to make the comeback. Let's talk, though, about how Magnus Carlsen closes it out right here, with the expectation that Alireza is going to come in with some new strategies, maybe some new creativity or a change of pace. How does Magnus just lock it up here and now?
For Magnus, it's more of the same. Play the same way he did in the first match. He knows he's a better player. He's played better. Magnus doesn't have to change anything. He just has to keep his cool, keep having the advantage on the clock, and hope that Alireza goes too far in trying to muck things up.
You know, and there was one thing I don't like what I'm seeing is how demoralized Alireza looks. Come on, man, bring it.
Yeah, we called you a favorite for a reason. You got yourself to the grand finals. Let's see you fight the world #1. Either way, Magnus Carlsen is up 1-0 in our total sets, but Alireza can strike back. Let's go to Mike for a word of what it looks like on the ground here at EWC.
Well, as you just saw, Magnus Carlsen took the first set 3-1. I'm here amongst the crowds. I can see people playing chess on their phones, waiting with their chessboards to get autographs. But the big story is that Magnus Carlsen wanted to win on the board. He did not want to flag his opponent, and I've known the man for about 12 years. He wants the headline to read, I played this cool knight b8 tactic in game 1. I played bishop takes f2 in game 4, and that's how he wants to try to win this match. Also, a little bit of breaking news. As I was headed into the arena, I saw Hikaru Nakamura enter the arena with his second, Chris Littlejohn. I asked Hikaru, hey, are you going to Alireza Firouzja's green room? Are you going to help him? Hikaru said to me, I'm going to go help him if he wants me to. So I don't know if Alireza is going to accept the assistance, but Hikaru has rushed back into the arena, and he is available for his teammate for Team Falcons.
That's the picture on the ground, but it all comes down to these two gentlemen who are about to step back onto the stage. It's Magnus Carlsen up 1-0 in the set. Alireza Firouzja looking to challenge back and equalize, forcing a best-of-2 in the end. This is your grand final here for chess at the Esports World Cup. We're going to a break. When we come back, the casters are going to get you right into it.
Welcome back to Chess at the Esports World Cup. We're about to get started with set 2 in the grand final. Currently, it's advantage Magnus Carlsen, the world #1, who took down Alireza Firouzja 3-1 in the first set. But that scoreline no longer matters. As long as Firouzja wins the second set, doesn't matter if it's by a tiniest of margin in Armageddon or an absolute 3-0 blowout. We will equal the scores 1-1. But it is all on Firouzja now. Can he turn this around?
He needs to turn it around. He needs to be better, needs to be quicker. He suffered his first defeats of the whole competition just in this last set, Firouzja, and it was uncharacteristic. Magnus, of course, at his best, hard to beat, but Tanya, you've got to expect more from the youngster.
Absolutely. In set 1, Alireza was outplayed and outpaced. He needs to flip the script. I think there are a lot of takeaways from all the games that we just saw. Some of the big ones for me were that Alireza has to make sure that he pulls Magnus into complicated battles, into those muddy waters, and needs to make sure he does that with a lot of time on the clock. The Falcon has to fly higher. He has to strike faster. You either rise now or it's all over.
And let's be clear as well. I feel like going into this matchup, a lot of people expected Carlsen to maybe get a bit of an edge over the board, but Firouzja to apply time pressure on Carlsen because of how quick he is. In reality, Carlsen has been on the receiving end in a good way of both of those traits. So it felt like Firouzja didn't have much to work with. That needs to change.
It needs to change, and something that has changed is Alireza Firouzja's first move. In the first set, he was playing e4 against Magnus Carlsen. Now, with white starting this set with those white pieces, Firouzja's gone back to something that served him well earlier in the event. He's been playing d4, and a quick capture of a pawn, that black d-pawn not running away anytime soon. And Magnus, look at this. He played h6 last move. He plays h5 now. He's definitely prepared. No chance this would have been mouse slip. No chance this would have been sudden, spur-of-the-moment inspiration. This is Magnus Carlsen going for Firouzja's king.
Very early on. The king coming for his opponent's king in this one, making his intentions clear. He's not thinking about development right now, but at some point, Magnus needs to get his pieces out. If he has to attack successfully in this game, h5 forces Alireza to go into a tank, and that's a small victory for Magnus already. He's seen that work out to his favor. He knows that Alireza in that break between set 1 and set 2 had prepared the queen's pawn opening, and this is where he counter-surprises him.
This is actually very, very impressive to start us off. Like you said, Tanya, queen's pawn opening, okay, we're switching it up for set 2, and instantaneously, Carlsen sends Alireza thinking very, very early on. He's now got a 30-second lead, but that's not the point. This was supposed to be a surprise that got Firouzja extra time on the clock. That hasn't happened, at least not yet.
Not yet. Magnus there reacting to a question mark move by returning the pawn that he was up. Yes, he could have gone a pawn up, Magnus, by trading, but that would have accelerated the opponent's development. Instead, he's happy to kind of transpose from what looked like it was about to be a fiery position with the black h-pawn going forward. Instead, he's playing more positionally here. Almost symmetrical in the center. Magnus, clearly the better prepared of these two players.
So what's the plan B now for Firouzja? Suddenly he's worried about, well, maybe not right now, but he's worried about h4. He's worried about the kingside pawn storm, trying to figure out what Magnus's plan is. He doesn't want to spend too long doing it, though. So what is he doing in the meantime? How are we going to be improving the pieces? Is there a plan B?
It's a really tough question to answer, and I think Alireza struggles with it as well, as he continues to think, you know, Magnus, especially when you know, is prepared in this line.
Right.
My guess would be that coming into this match, Magnus had certain ideas for the king's pawn opening, and he'd also seen the queen's pawn opening. And this is something that was part of his repertoire for this grand final. And Firouzja is very aware of that, because h5 cannot be over-the-board inspiration. This is a move you've seen at home.
I think I've seen it actually published in some magazines, some books, maybe some other resources, this funny idea of the black h-pawn moving twice, as if he forgot, Magnus, for a moment, that pawns can move 2 squares on their first go. Ultimately, Firouzja, he's repeated a mistake that a lot of us make. He's played the same opening multiple times in the same tournament, and Magnus, of course, he will have studied what Firouzja's been doing on previous days. And ultimately, it's just a level position, but that's a success for whoever starts with black.
And you know, moves like this, after playing h6, you go h5, it's sort of like a one one trick pony. You use it for one game because you know that your colleagues, your competition will be preparing it for the next one, and it's not objectively the best move. So Magnus choosing this stage where Alireza has got no increment, no bonus time, a very practical play by the world number one.
And also, don't forget, you move h6 and then h5, the casual observer will rightly go, well, hang on a second. You're just giving away a tempo. But the point is, all of your opening preparation, all of the positions your opponent has memorized, all of the plans that they're thinking about, even though that tempo is to their advantage, you're now having to recalculate all of that a move out. And it's super frustrating to have to do that, not just for one line, but for all of your opening preparation.
Yeah, and in the meantime, a question mark move appears, but I just want to backtrack and show for some eagle-eye viewers what might have happened if White tried to go a pawn up. He could have played bishop takes knight, Alireza, and we would have seen a recapture. White could have captured this h5 pawn that we've been talking so much about, but here the black g pawn pushes forward, pawn to g5, hitting the white knight. If you retreat, now you can trap the white queen. The bishop comes out, and when the queen retreats, you go back to f5. Look at this, embarrassed queen coming out too early. This is why they say, don't bring those pieces out too soon. So this variation, quickly calculated by both players, quickly avoided by Alireza Firouzja, and that leaves us with a very level-looking middle game. Again, everything he wants to try, Alireza, all these sharp lines seem to be working in Magnus's favor. And just to point out, the move that he gained by Magnus pushing h6, then h5, is a pawn push to b3. And actually, that pawn on b3 gets in the way of the white queen and loosens the dark squares. That is why Magnus's strategy has been so effective.
That's such a key point, because the extra move that you have is actually not only one that doesn't give you any advantages, but might have actually given your opponent something to play for. And this is sort of the hard part in chess, right? When you know your opponent in the opening has wasted a move, how do you play something that long run works in your favor? And it looks like this time Alireza did not find the right way.
You give yourself that sort of pressure, don't you? Because psychologically you think, well, there is no way this is the best move, h6 then h5. I feel like it's my duty here to punish that, to show you why that's inaccurate, to show you why that leads to an advantage for me. And it just adds additional pressure to make that right move. And if you're unable to do that, then what looked like a silly move suddenly looks pretty sensible.
I want to point out one more thing, speaking about the dynamics, as you pointed out, John, in this position, White would love to play h4 and stop that black pawn from moving forward. But the bishop complexes are such that black's the one who can take advantage of the light square weakness that would be the g4 point. But meanwhile, White does not have the dark squared bishop. So after h4, you don't have a bishop to plonk on g5.
Right.
But the g4 square beautifully there for Magnus would have been left behind. So now, basically, for the rest of the game, or at least until White plays h4, Magnus is always threatening to push that pawn even further ahead.
I just want to point out as well, look at the clock. Nothing has changed in terms of time usage from the first set. Firouzja down 2.5 minutes. Might not sound like much, but we've been here before. We've seen what happened.
This is dangerous now. Firouzja maybe thought, rather than change the time management, let's change the opening and see if that leads as a natural consequence to the time management being a little bit easier, to the inequality being a little bit less. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like that's the case. He started with the queen's pawn opening, and the situation on the clock is now starting to get as bad as it was in set number 1. So he is trying something different. Let's give him credit where it's due. But so far, at least, doesn't seem to be working.
Yeah, we've been talking about tennis, how the kind of format of the finals, it's in sets. Having White is like having the serve in tennis. That's what they used to say. You can choose to go e-pawn, d-pawn. Ultimately, though, your opponent is expecting you to mix up those serves occasionally, to go different directions. And he chose to serve with a different hand. He went d4 this time, but Magnus was waiting. Magnus was ready. And now, okay, it's all about the c-file, but it looks solid enough for black.
But so far, speaking of tennis, I mean, the play from Alireza throughout the match feels like it's from baseline. He needs to somewhere come and do those volleys if he's got to have a chance against Magnus. But this position, I don't even see a way for a break to appear on the board.
No break. If anything, it's going to be all rooks off on the c-file. And Firouzja's done nothing wrong in terms of kind of objective moves. It's probably just an equal position, but that's not what he wants with the white pieces.
And speaking of breaks, if anyone's got that, it's got to be Magnus, right? The e5 pawn moving forward at some point, the h pawn moving ahead at some point. So Magnus also holding the keys to opening up this position.
Agreed. All the options seem to be favoring white here, not necessarily meaning that they, lead to victory instantaneously or anything like that, but certainly the options in terms of what strategic direction the game is going to go in. The initiative very firmly in Magnus's favor for now, and that's not a problem if there was time on the clock. The problem is Firouzja is 3 minutes down as well. 7 versus 4, you know what? Totally fine. But if this gets into another 4 versus 1 scenario, that can very quickly become a blunder.
3.5 minutes. It's not a blunder from Firouzja, but I'm going to say a small miss from him. He underestimated Magnus's knight going to the edge of the board here. I'm really surprised he didn't just bring the other white rook to the c-file. Now there's going to be tension, and look at this. He's forced to retreat due to the tension. The white knight was pinned, and after this trade, black is going to be the one conquering the open lines. Look at this. The white knight hit Firouzja. He's reeling, retreating, forced to react to these threats. Magnus is on fire, I've got to say.
He really is. I mean, it's just incredible what he's done in this match so far. He's not only dominating on the board, he's winning the psychological warfare here against Alireza. Just the way he played that set 1. The 2 times, Alireza is very aware that Magnus could have even tried to flag him in those 2 games that eventually ended in a draw. Magnus didn't even want to do that. He finished the set with a checkmate on the board.
This looks slow and steady and inevitable coming in from Magnus. The queen and the rook battery on the C line. There's not very much at all. In fact, there's pretty much nothing Alireza can do to prevent infiltration from the queen on the next move, if that's what Magnus wants. And what's frustrating is Magnus has done this on a fraction of the time that Alireza has taken, and that's really what hurts the most, because speed was supposed to be Alireza's greatest weapon.
We're 24 moves in. Magnus has not spent more than 21 seconds on a single move. Alireza, meanwhile, it's about half a dozen moves he's spent around the 1 minute mark. And okay, he's kicked the black knight back, but that's not going to help at all. White knight sidelined. The pace of this game, the black queen coming in soon, it all spells danger.
This has been so strange. Just the positions that we've gotten in the match so far, Alireza really never get going. In any of the boards, in any of the games that we've seen, not getting his kind of play, not getting his kind of positions where he really, really excels at. Hikaru managed to do that. Again, from the back foot. When he played that King's Indian defense, he just went all out. Somehow, Alireza hasn't been able to get that on the board for himself.
And that looked similar to what Magnus is doing in this game, because Hikaru was able to engineer a situation where he built a small advantage and kept building on it and kept building on it and shut down Magnus's counterplay. And you could tell in that game yesterday, Magnus was very uncomfortable when that situation happened. We need Firouzja to be able to engineer the same thing, but he hasn't been able to.
Look at this, another question mark move appears. The bar slides, saying that Magnus has an over 3-point advantage. That's because Alireza's moved up a pawn, weakening his king. It might be time for the black queen to swoop in. So many targets in mind there. The black rook as well. Hopefully, he would be hoping that it lands on c4. The black bishop there on d3 instead, hitting a white rook. Not the best from Magnus, but good enough to maintain the advantage. I think he's going for the queen trade here, Tanya. He's going to be hoping that he can pick off the white b-pawn in the near future. The only thing Magnus has to be careful of is counter play here from queen to e7 incoming.
And that would combine the queen and the knight attack on the f7 pawn, so definitely something that you want to think about. The bar says Magnus is doing great, but you see a move like queen e7 as your opponent's threat, and you start thinking about, maybe I need to be a little careful, need to go on the defense here. But the good news for Magnus is, even if that was to happen, the bishop can always slide back. Go back to g6 and keep everything protected. So Magnus, will he try the queen trade? He doesn't. He does, in fact, go on that defense, making sure that Alireza does not get queen e7. The knight retreats, the queen defends.
Yeah, a bit odd, actually, Magnus's bishop move, allowing this white knight to jump back with gain of time. And here, Alireza at least has corrected one of his bad pieces to some extent, but still hard to find a plan for white. If you push any further pawns on the king side, you're only weakening yourself. You're not ready. And it does feel like Magnus, he's clearly playing on the clock. He's not even trying to come in and create any complications. He's just biding his time.
White would love to be able to get the knight out to d3 so that you can slide the rook across to c1 and actually create some sort of opposition on the c-file. Can't do that because of the bishop on g6, unfortunately. And as a result, not only is the position a little bit binding, but the most obvious idea is also being bound. So we're being forced to think of alternatives now. The bishop comes in thinking about coming into d3 to try and get that plan in motion, but black immediately slides in with the queen to c2, not allowing enough time.
And he's also threatening his own rook to swoop onto that c3 square with further ideas and tactics of attacking the knight, which has just moved back to that square. Magnus's queen looking beautiful, the rook on the open line. Just compare Magnus's pieces to Alireza's forces here. You know, all of them, most of them on the first rank, the other two left on the board are on different sides of the board. Not combining, no play to be found. Magnus has basically denied Alireza any activity in this entire match. You know, David, you said Magnus on fire. It's usually Fire Ruja, and that's not been the case. Liquid Carlsen's extinguished all flames in this one.
I mean, he absolutely loves Alireza, that is. These big, dynamic positions where there's lots and lots of attacking, but Magnus is just shutting him down so hard at every opportunity that he hasn't got the opportunity, really, to give us that flair that we know he's capable of, and he's struggling in those conditions.
Yeah, there's something up with Alireza's clock handling as well. Maybe it's due to the type of position, maybe it's just due to the opponent, and there we go, Magnus making his move. G5 looks super aggressive. It's actually designed to just paralyze, immobilize the white knight on the edge of the board. We're down to bullet territory, 40 seconds. The red appearing for Alireza Firouzja. He needs to move. This game is still in its infancy. This is still the early middle game. He's trying to blow open the center now. He's got to change the pace, Alireza, but barring a blunder, surely not enough time.
And that's the thing, when you change the pace, you need more time on the clock to handle all those critical decisions that come out of that gear shift. But Alireza now 36 seconds on the clock. Bullet territory, you know, synonym for that is Alireza Firouzja. But he's so slow on every single move.
And Magnus has blundered. Magnus has not realized that the white rook can step up one square, kicking the black queen away from the defense of its knight. Magnus, we're going to see a reaction from him. He's going to have to switch gears and try to flag. He's just lost a piece.
Whoa. Magnus Carlsen, will he go on to flagging mode now? That one big inaccuracy. We've seen him not play on the clock earlier in this match. Is this when it all changes?
Wow, carelessness from the world number one. He knew that he was getting closer and closer to his goal of claiming the first game of this set too, but now the black queen, kicked away off the diagonal, will not be able to defend its knight. The tactics go on. Magnus is going to have to calculate his way out of this.
And it's pretty complex, right? Because black has the option of pinning that bishop on the first rank, trying to target the other knight at the edge of the board. Magnus, he's gone in to find that resource mode right now. There are still tactics that exist, but Magnus, is he finding them?
That is a huge shift. Magnus now, he's going to have to show us something that he hasn't been reluctant to do so far in this match. He has to flag Firouzja. He's going to have to try and create some tricks here, Magnus.
It's Alireza with 24 seconds, but it's Magnus Carlsen who's panicking right now.
Oh, look at Magnus's face. He is shocked. He's given up his queen, the world number one. Here we go. It's rook and knight for a queen. Alireza Firouzja is winning, but does he have enough time on the clock? This is the best position he's had all match, all day. The black king's so open as well. It's a race against the clock, 21 seconds. Can he convert?
That is the big question. Will it be enough time? He needs to combine that queen and bishop first. He completely disconnects black's rook, and Alireza with a shake of his head, just wishing he had that extra minute on the clock.
Magnus Carlsen is busted. The black rook is about to be hit. The white queen is coming in. There we go. Black's pieces can barely move. The queenside pawns are gone, but 16 seconds. Magnus is going to have to be dirty about this.
Alireza has to win this. He has to convert this game at all costs right now. 16 seconds. This is where his bullet skills need to come in. Magnus trying to survive.
Black rook can barely move. There we go. The first pawn drops. The black rook coming in with a check. Some counterplay, some hope for Magnus Carlsen, but Firouzja's done everything right. He has activated God mode, Alireza Firouzja. He's pushing the B pawn forward for glory. It's creating counterplay for Magnus Carlsen in the meantime. 11 seconds, Tanya. Is it going to be enough?
That is the big question. Alireza Firouzja can get maximum number of moves when he's down on the seconds, better than anyone else in the world, and that's what he needs to do right now. Will he convert into a full point? He gives it up. Another queen appears on the board.
And Magnus blunders his rook.
He's about to resign.
Wow. Alireza Firouzja striking back. He's got two queens. 7 seconds should be more than enough. Magnus Carlsen gives up. What a turnaround.
An opening surprise and counter surprise not working out for Firouzja, leading to 5 minutes versus 1, but getting into a winning position with 20 seconds left on his clock and managing to convert against the world #1. We have fireworks and a couple of moments of magic here from Alireza Firouzja. Falcons are back on the board.
And we have a match on our hands with that big win. Alireza Firouzja, what a roller coaster of a game. And you could see it on Magnus Carlsen. He was furious with himself. This was his game. Alireza down to 25 seconds when Magnus made that blunder. But what a convert there by the Falcons.
Magnus said it before the match himself. Nerves, they're going to play a part. That was Magnus Carlsen reluctant to get involved in a time scramble and showing why Firouzja there. He was just so fast, so accurate. You never really doubted Firouzja once he got that winning advantage, despite the clock time. Super impressive, so resourceful. And there we see the final blunder from Magnus, dropping his rook and the reaction on his face.
Unbelievable stuff. Firouzja only getting to the winning position with 24 seconds left to go. And you know what? This is the kind of magic that we know Firouzja is capable of. Maybe Magnus and Hikaru, the only two players on the planet, arguably, who can do that quite as fast with that sort of precision. I will say, though, it did require an opening from Magnus. It required that mistake for Firouzja to capitalize on it. Had Magnus not blundered that piece to begin with, we might be staring down the barrel of a very different result right now. In fact, that would have been quite likely.
It came down to that one move blunder, but how quick, how fast, how Alireza sharp was Firouzja in that moment to capitalize on it and never gave Magnus a chance to come back into the game. This is what he does best. With seconds on the clock, he still has the tactical ability of God.
That's what Alireza was saying before the match started as well. It's going to be tough. Magnus will give you very few chances. It is critical that when those chances come by, you have to instantly take them. And this might be the first time we saw him definitively grab one of those with both hands.
Forget Falcon, he's going to feel like a phoenix right now, the way he rose from the ashes in that game, Alireza. Still a shake of the head, but he knows he's back with a vengeance. Game on.
And this is the confidence you need, right? When you're playing against Magnus, everything that happened in set 1 is now behind Alireza Firouzja. With that big win, this is going to be some match now. He's got to be feeling good about his chances, but he needs to keep up the pace on the clock. Because had it not been for that one move blunder, this would have been a completely different storyline.
Now Magnus reacts to that shock, to that disappointment by playing a very ambitious opening. Magnus with White has played into one of the main lines of the semi-Slav defense. White has Fianchettoed his bishop, but it's a gambit. The gambit accepted by Alireza Firouzja, who's captured on c4 and hopes to maintain that pawn phalanx there. He's up a pawn, he develops his bishop. Magnus needs to play very energetically to compensate.
But I like this because these are the kind of positions that get super complicated in the middle game, you know, where black does have the extra pawn and white plays for a big center, for piece activity and domination of trying to make sure that Alireza's pieces do not get into development. This last move makes Alireza push the B pawn and the C pawn as well moving forward. Looks extremely strong, but the base of that chain will be targeted by Magnus with A3.
This is such high-risk strategy from Magnus Carlsen. High reward as well, since black isn't fully developed. But if he cannot strike in the next few moves, Magnus, he's going to regret allowing black this beautiful protected passed pawn formation. Alireza, he smells weakness and he's going for it here.
It's very rare that we see a pass pawn on the third rank for black this early on in a game. Obviously, we're still quite early on here, and I'm sure positions like this have been studied a fair bit before. We're very much in the opening, but that's got to be really uncomfortable.
Especially after what just happened, you know, and Magnus does not want to take this to a third set.
No.
He wants to get this done this time, but for that, he needs to find a chance to get a win in. Only 3 more games remain for Alireza to neutralize this match, to equalize the match and force that tiebreaker set. And what he's done so far, you know, it shows that he doesn't want to play KG anymore. The confidence he needed, it's in the bag.
That's interesting as well, isn't it? Because with the confidence there, it's a weird situation where 3 draws actually gets Alireza the second set, but I don't think anybody here or on the analyst desk or in the audience or anywhere are betting that Alireza wants to play safe and get 3 safe draws. That is not going to happen, right? That's just not his brand of chess. It's not where he excels. and he wants to show us more of what just got him that victory in game number 1.
Exactly. He has fully woken up Alireza, and I love this change in strategy from him. Rather than just try to defend stoically, solidly as Black and allow Magnus to try and grind him down, he's gone for one of the most ambitious variations you can play against these Queen's Pawn openings. Magnus now pausing. It feels like both players are freestyling somewhat, just judging by the clock. This is the first time Alireza's been up on time at the 12 move mark in any game so far. That must be fantastic news for him.
Absolutely. And Alireza, he still has an extra pawn on the board, and that's a big pawn on c3. So for Magnus, he has to find a way to prove this opening idea that he went with. It's still a long way to go. The play often revolves around the squares the white knights have, the b6 point, the c5 point. At some moment, Magnus might try to win a bishop pair in the position to prove that compensation, and that bishop on g2 make sure that the knight on b8 does not come out in the game, at least for some time.
Alireza pausing. To recapture with the pawn is maybe high risk, but it's also very, very high reward in this scenario. To take back with your bishop would get you closer to castling, but your passed pawn on c3 will probably drop in the near future. So I'm expecting this move is at least the move he wants to play from Firouzja.
It's also his style. But the fact that he's slowed down, you know, this is what we've been seeing this whole match, just his time management. It almost feels a player whose biggest forte is his intuition, his instincts. Somehow he's not being able to trust them. Pawn takes pawn is what Alireza plays every single day. Whoa, he goes for another approach, gives up the bishop pair himself.
Wow, maybe he's scared of any pins on the A file. He wanted to open up the black rook. The last move given an exclamation point, but the eval bar rises in Magnus's favor. It did feel a bit rushed. Normally you don't want to clarify the structure, especially giving white some nice central control here until the last minute. But there we go. And he's allowed Magnus forward.
And I love that move. Not only does it get the knight to b6 in positions, but it blocks the black bishop on f8. And now the white queen about to threaten that pawn on b4 via queen to b3. And that would be big trouble for black.
And we have to pull up a board here because Alireza Firouzja is going to spend a bit of time thinking, but he might have to find a genius move here to hold the balance. In this position, given a bit of time, whites are going to bring the queen out and we see the bar rise. The queen's coming to b3 to pick off some pawns, but Alireza could have played bishop takes c5.
Wow.
The white knight is pinned, cannot recapture, and if the pawn takes back, then the queens would disappear from the board. And at the very end of the variation, b3, look at the pin on the a file, look at the menacing pawns. This would provide full compensation to black, but wow, not spotted. We can't blame him for that. Superhuman that would have been, but now he might be finding himself in trouble instead. If the black pawns drop off on the queen side, Tanya, it's a huge advantage for Magnus Carlsen.
This is a beautiful position. If you're not defending that b4 pawn, and let's point out, the knight can't jump to a6 because guess what? That beautiful, stunning bishop on g2, the Catalan bishop, the Queen's Gambit declined bishop, call it what you want, is eyeing that c6 pawn. It's the most valuable piece here for Magnus. You can't let it activate there. If not knight a6, the only other move is queen to a5. But that also comes under fire once white moves the bishop away, the knight jumps forward. What is your queen even doing on a5? I don't think there's a way to defend this pawn.
Yeah, you could grab white's pawn in the center, I guess, but the black queen will be kicked around the board, and that doesn't feel healthy, especially with the black king still marooned in the center. No happy decisions here for Alireza. He's not a pawn grabber by nature. He won't want to get his queen out and lose more time there before getting castled, but he might have to. That's the only way.
Console yourself by saying actually grabbing that pawn undermines part of what is making white's position so strong at the moment, and rather than seeing it as pawn grabbing, you have to see it as something positionally to build on, right?
Another big moment for Alireza. Is he going to take the pawn? He does, and now we're expecting Magnus to bring out his bishop to attack the black queen. The black queen will want to retreat, and now after taking back the pawn, watch out, the white queen coming into b7 as well as the black pawn on c3 dropping off. Black cannot even castle, or maybe he can, because the queen to b7 looks like a double attack, and this is looking into the future, but we're headed in this direction, at least until this last move from Firouzja. It's hotting up this game now. Magnus senses his moment.
Queen to g4, and is white going to continue chasing that queen away, which defends that b4 pawn? Magnus, if he wins b4, he's not going to stop there. There's queen b7, the c3 pawn falls as well. And if you're able to neutralize the material deficit in the position as white with the two bishops, the bishop on g2 unchallenged for the rest of the game, it's advantage Carlsen.
Absolutely. I mean, look, that was the point that was made out of the opening here by Firouzja. I've got these monstrous pawns that are passed now on b4 and c3, and that's going to be how I force you to give up an advantage so that you can mop up those pawns. I need something in exchange for that. And right now, though, it feels like it's Carlsen who's batting him around a bit and will get to pick them up. If he's able to do that for free, and don't forget, Firouzja still has to castle. This is very much looking like initiative firmly lost by the black pieces.
Yeah, just to point out, the black queen could not have taken a pawn on e2, as the white knight would have jumped back, taking a pawn, hitting the queen, and opening up a line towards the black rook. So there was a poisoned pawn in that position, and Magnus, talking of pawns, goes munching. The first of black's pawns drops. Now he has to castle Firouzja. Unthinkable to do anything else. The black king needed to run to safety before it was too late. And can Magnus do more than just regain the material he gave up earlier?
Well, the one idea is the double attack that we earlier pointed out, queen to b7, but there is a defensive resource there. The black knight coming to d7, connecting the two rooks, and also making sure queen takes bishop isn't possible, and that's why maybe it does not work just in time there. So Magnus, with a lot of choices here, he could take the pawn back on c3, he could infiltrate with his own queen, or will he find some activity against black's offside queen on the right side of the board? He does take the pawn back, inviting a trade of rooks. Rook takes rook, on Magnus's turn, will give him the a-file.
It's the first time in 15 moves that we've got level material again. It's crazy, these sacrifices, such long-term ideas by these top players, and ultimately Magnus emerges with a very small advantage.
Yeah, to be fair, when you compare the pieces, you go, well, actually, now that Firouzja's played knight bd7, the knights are on reasonable squares. The bishop is at least pointing towards a c5 pawn, which is a bit of a menace, but it's doing something useful. You can see the knight potentially coming into d5, but take a look at the bishop here from Magnus. The piece activity just feels a little bit stronger for white, and it feels like white has some more options. Not necessarily a winning position or anything like that, but it feels easier to play.
Easier to play, and Alireza pauses before moving the rook in the corner that's attacked. Does ultimately shift it and attack the white queen. Magnus is going to run away with that piece now, but the big question is whether black can take the c5 pawn next. If he restores the material balance, makes sure that it's only pawns on one flank, then Firouzja should be out of danger.
Well, there's also another pawn hanging on the board, the h3 one. Let's not forget about that. He's threatening c5, queen takes pawn as well, with some ideas of the knight jumping forward, maybe putting some pressure on Magnus's king. With this move, rook b8, first asking a question to Magnus's queen, where does he run?
Big moment, and I'm looking at the clock, I'm thinking this again is the best situation Firouzja's been in a while, and Magnus looks frustrated.
I think that's a great point. We're past move 20 now. I feel like so far in this match, there have been several instances where Firouzja's been down by 2 or 3 minutes on the clock by this point. That has not happened in this game. He hasn't got time to take solace from that at the moment, but we can see that this is a visible improvement from Alireza.
This is a completely shift in pace, you know, on the board, psychologically, on the clock, everything. This is a totally different match, a totally different set from what we saw earlier on in the day. And now Alireza about to get more time on the clock than Magnus for the first time in this match, as Magnus dips below the 423 mark, still hasn't made a decision of where to move the queen, 2 pawns under attack. Alireza, I think he's ambitious about his chances. Magnus moves the queen to f4. Be careful, the black knight can't take on c5, the rook on b8 is hanging.
Yep, great move by Magnus, maintaining some advantage due to the fact the black rook is so loose. But Firouzja now, at least he has a little bit of time, a few seconds, to mull over what to do. The move he wants to play is bishop takes pawn on c5, but some calculation needed. The black queen holding things together there might get hit. And Firouzja, big moment. He can't spend too long though.
Yeah, I'm trying to... Can he get away with bishop takes? It looks like he just about can, because maybe because the black queen is actually still on h5. It's easy to forget that it's still on the board, and it's a bit of a long-range piece there. So maybe that just about allows it to happen. But you're right, you can't take it with the knight. It has to be with the bishop.
Gonna point out, Magnus blundered a rook in the last game.
Oh my God.
Like you guys said, with the queen on h5, that's going to be the recapture after bishop takes pawn. So possible, but something about that move Magnus does not like. He's perhaps also thinking about queen capturing the pawn on h3, the other one that's available. or maybe a rook slide over, hitting that bishop. A lot of options. But he's taking his time, Alireza is.
Yeah, you mentioned Magnus blundering a rook. He's done that a few times in recent history. He regularly blunders knights, I'm going to say. He blundered a knight against Hikaru in the final game, game 6 of their semi-finals. He blundered a knight against Farouja in the previous encounter. It's always these knights on e4, knights on d2. It's always the same pattern that Magnus seems to have a blind spot. I'll just mention that here. Luckily, he's white, and luckily for him, at least, he's white. And his knight, for now, not under threat, but just watch out for that later. Farouja has found some weakness, but this move, he spent nearly 2 minutes now, nearly half his time on this one turn. He does take the pawn.
Well calculated. Good that he worked that out, but so much time spent.
That's exactly the point. It felt like a 2 to 3 move calculation, right? So Alireza would have thought deeper. He didn't spend 2 minutes just figuring out that he's got queen takes bishop at the end of that line. There's something more to this position. He's trying to think, because every piece is loose right now. That knight on d7 defends the rook on d8. It can come under fire immediately with the move rook to d1.
And that sets a nasty trap. If the white rook does shift across to d1, black cannot play bishop takes bishop, as the white queen would be sacrificing itself on the b8 square just to break through onto the back rank with some checkmates. I don't know if Magnus Carlsen has spotted that. He's looking a bit deeper into the position, but let's check it out. The best move, rook to d1, attacking the black knight, undermining the bishop. Alireza Farouja cannot play bishop takes bishop right now, because queen takes rook would end in a checkmate after the queen is recaptured. Look at this, a back ranker. The black king trapped behind its own pawns. Alireza Farouja cannot trade bishops right now. It's a key moment. He needs to find another solution, but he's down to 2 minutes. He does block the queen's path. That was the only way